Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lights Out Podcast. I am the MMA detective, Mike Davis. Along with me, my partner in crime, Miguel Iturrate. Miguel, we've got a very special guest. We've got Lions Den member, former Lions Den member, Tony Galindo with us. Tony, the Bull Galindo, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you.
All right, so Tony, let's kind of build a little bit of a background. You started in bodybuilding.
Right.
And you won, I think you won the middleweight Mr. Orange County, 1992.
Yeah.
And then you worked your way in with Dorian Yates. Am I correct?
Well, I met him before I really got started in bodybuilding because my mom and her previous husband ran a World's Gym. So I was all over the place. I ended up meeting Dorian. Well, I actually met Billy Payne, which was one of his friends. And he's the one that asked me if I would be interested in looking after him when he came because he doesn't trust people. And Billy and I became like quick friends. So that's how I met him. And he's the one that basically taught me everything. I mean, up to that point, man, I hadn't even smoked pot. So when I met Dorian, he was like, hey, can you get me some weed? And I was like, holy shit. You know, I was a little cherry. And he was the one that basically broke me out of that. He's like, dude, you have to fucking try everything once before you judge anything. Otherwise, you know, you're just another asshole. So through him, I learned everything: dieting, drugs, all drugs, steroids, recreational. So it was a good thing, man. He was a good mentor for me. I was a little late, but you know, helped out because I had a little more longevity in the department.
Well, back then too, there was a lot of trial and error in steroids. There was no internet, so you couldn't look anything up. So it was just more handing information down to somebody, like from one person to another. And that would have been incredibly helpful, especially in the mixed martial arts world, that information.
Right. Which is why when I was leaving the Army and trying to find which place I fit in the most, Dorian said, dude, go with that dude that looks like a bodybuilder. He looks like he uses a lot of shit and you look like you fit right in. And he was right. You know, I called, I think it was 4 or 5 months before I was going to get out of the Army. I contacted the Lions Den and his wife ended up emailing me. And that's how it got started.
Who was your jump in? Like, I shouldn't say who was, how would you describe your jump in to the Lions Den?
My initiation, you mean?
Yes.
It was in 2 parts. See, when I got to San Diego for my initiation, this was at the time when Ken was like big in the WWE. So he was constantly gone. And basically, when I got to San Diego, I met him, but he said that I was going to go fly to Oklahoma to try out in Mikey's gym. And him and Mikey were, Guy and Mikey were going to do my initiation, my tryout.
So Guy Metzger, Mikey Burnett.
Right.
Okay. So how does it go?
So I get to Oklahoma. It's hot as fuck. I am also fat as fuck because I got out of the military. And for me, it was a little different. You know, I left the military fucking loaded on steroids. I was a fucking monster. So doing 2 hours of cardio when you're, you know, fully on all kinds of androgens and fucking anabolics doesn't really work out too well for your muscles because you blow the fuck up. So I did everything that I needed to do. And right after the end of my calisthenics, the 2 hours of the shit, Guy decides to say, you failed. So go home. So I was like, whatever. We went back to Mikey's, and that was the beginning because I could tell that dude didn't like me from the moment he met me. You know, the feeling was mutual. Pete made fun of it because he said we are as opposite from each other as you can possibly get. Pete's this guy is the pretty boy, you know, wants to be like Hollywood, and I'm more of like a freak. How do I say this? I'm just like in Guy's eyes, I was more thuggish. I'm not sure what I can't put words in his mouth. Just the dude didn't like me. So he ends up calling Ken and telling him that I didn't pass. But when it comes to certain people that are going to be useful to Ken, he's going to make it doesn't give a fuck what anybody else is. So Ken goes, that's okay. Send him back. I'll try him out myself. So
wait a minute. So you said he went back to Mikey. Did Mikey vouch for you with Ken?
No. I failed there. I failed that tryout, which was like on a Saturday, the tryout itself. So I fly back to California on a Monday, and I'm beat the fuck, dude. Because if you do tryouts for the Lions Den, when you're running bleachers and fucking miles and sit-ups, fucking push-ups, burpees, and you know, Guy was not going to take it easy on me because, like I said, he didn't like me in the first place. So instead of failing me right away, he made me go through the whole fucking thing to punish me before he was like, okay, you didn't make it, motherfucker, leave. So I was like, okay. I didn't give a fuck because I knew there'd be other teams that I could go to. My other two thoughts would be Randy Couture's or Pat Miletich, which were the other two at the time that were equally as impressive in my mind. So long story short, I was like, fuck, but San Diego was the most convenient because my family's from there. So long story short, I fly back. Once I get back to San Diego, then it was bad because now Ken's going to fucking try me out himself, and he's going to well, the good thing was I didn't have to do the calisthenics. The bad thing was I was already so tired and beat up. And you know, the second or third day, you're even worse. So Ken's like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. He goes, just meet me at the dojo at 6 p.m. and have somebody with you. These are all these great things that you learn later with Ken that are like little subtleties where you need to
you ain't gonna be able to drive home.
Yeah. You need to bring someone with you because you're not going to be able to leave by yourself. So it's funny, dude. And look, just so you know, and everybody knows, I absolutely love the whole time. I don't have anything against Ken because, you know, everyone's, I think somebody asked me if I had something to get off my chest. And to be honest, I think it was you that I sent that picture. I was like, in a way, no, it's not about any complaints. I just want to have these really cool times recorded for fucking posterity, dude, because there was some crazy shit. But anyway, long story short, meet me at the dojo at 6 p.m. So this is when everybody leaves because they're going to close it down because he's going to beat the fuck out of me. So I get there and Vernon's like, hey, man, good luck. Ken's waiting for you in the back. And I had my friend Matt with me, who was in the Army. And fuck, bro, it was quite the experience. And, you know, things that are very traumatic in your life, you never forget. So, I walked into the back because the cage was in the back of the Chula Vista of the first dojo. And Ken was already there warming up. And he's like, hey, man, just get your shit on, get in here. And what's your name? My friend's all Matt. He goes, you can take the time. Just let us know, what did he say? I think it was like 30 minutes had passed or some shit like that. And I was like, oh, fuck. So I don't remember the exact time. I'll just tell you this. As soon as we started, he took me down and began a relentless pounding, but I'm talking with elbows. And he started elbowing me. And all of a sudden, through one of those, I tried hugging him because I had experience. But it's like, I don't give a fuck how good you think you are. You know, when you're an amateur and you meet someone like this motherfucker that gets on top of you, the experience in my mind that I could probably compare to, I guess that would be like what a gazelle must feel like when a fucking lion takes it by the neck and starts fucking throwing it all over the place, and the thing's just like, you know, he just and I looked up because he's fucking elbowing me, and I could hear the impact from my skull and his elbow going like deep into my ear, and all of a sudden it got really wet, and I was like, what the fuck? And I tasted it, and it was blood. It was really like salty, and I was like, fuck, I gotta get the fuck out of here. So he stops elbowing me, and he grabs my head like a fucking watermelon, and I thought, what the fuck? And I opened my eyes because I had my eyes closed. I was trying to hold on to him, and at this point, he's got both of his thumbs on the cut in my forehead, and he's trying to rip it open like a fucking like a cannibal, dude. I'm like, what the fuck? And I push his hands out of the way, and he goes, use the blood to your advantage. Use it to escape. I'm like, all this shit I remember because I thought, you know what? That's actually pretty fucking genius. At that time, we were pretty sweaty, and I used the blood to get. There was a lot of blood, man. I used the blood to get out. I think he no, he definitely let me. Like as soon as I got to the right type of fucking escape, but I was already too tired to really pull it off. But I think there at the moment I reached that, he was like, okay, all right, motherfucker, that's okay. Oh, look, he escaped. So then he turns around, he starts kicking me and kneeing me. I mean, the beating went on for what felt like forever in my mind, but it was a little over an hour until he got tired because Matt's taking the time and Ken's all right. He's all right, that's good. But by then, he had already popped my knee with a heel hook that was just fucking nasty. He had popped a rib that he didn't break it, but it was out of place where I couldn't breathe. He broke my nose, dislocated my thumb, and all the cuts in my head. He fucked me up, man. Like, and he choked me out. This was fantastic. He chokes me out with a shoulder choke while he's mounted on me, and then he wakes me up punching me in the face. So it was like that experience right there could be described as the fucking guy like takes me out, then all of a sudden I go into this wonderful place where everything was calm and gray, and all of a sudden I wake up to him punching me, telling me to move, and I was like, wow. So a lot of that shit was like you see in the fights when the guy gets knocked out, but then the other dude keeps punching him, and he like wakes back up, and he's back in the fight. A lot of those fights, if the guy didn't wake him up, punching him again, the dude be out, the fight be over. But I can totally relate to that because he did that to me. He woke me up punching me, and I was in a fantastic dream. But come back to this shit.
Let me ask you a couple of questions though. So you left the military and made your way to the Lions Den, and you mentioned kind of being a thug. So you were attracted to the Lions.
I was a thug to the way he made me feel. The way Guy looked at me like I was a piece of shit, dude.
Well, okay. Wait. So let me get proper context here. Tony, you're a street guy. There's no question about that.
Look, I came out of the army. My mouth is foul. I was kind of like, ready to go. My energy is out there. And Guy, my first experience meeting the guy is he meets me, gets in the car, and he goes, yeah, and I almost got into a fight with this fucking guy who was probably in his 80s in Dallas, who cuts me off with road rage, and then he gets out of his vehicle with a cane, and he's like, I'll fuck you up. And he's like, you know who I am? I'm the king of pancreas. And to me, that shit rung in my head because I thought, that's a fucking, what an egotistical fucking shit to say. But you know what? At the time, I didn't say shit. First of all, I wanted to be there, and I wanted to do this. And my reason for even disliking him the whole way was because you could tell right off the bat that the energy wasn't there. He looked at me like, like, you fat fuck. And I looked at him like, oh, you're the dude with the long hair that got his ass kicked at that first UFC, huh? So anyway, it's no big deal. I don't have anything against the guy, I'm just telling you what how I felt of it. He never liked me. He, as a matter of fact, abused his standing in the den as often as he could. He'd bring one of his girlfriends and he'd be like, "What's this?" And he'd go, "Hey, go to my car and bring me everything that you find in my ashtray and hurry up." So I'd run to his fucking car, bring the shit from his ashtray. He's all, "What's in there?" "Okay, now go put it back." You know, that kind of shit, which it's hazing, but you only do that to people that you really want to fucking be a dick to. And it was pretty obvious, since he's the only guy that did it to me, that he didn't like me. But anyway.
Yeah. My original question was going to be like, so you were attracted to the Lions Den for the fighting. You didn't come from the like Wayward Boys program, like, you know, with Bob or anything like that.
Fuck no, dude. Are you kidding me, man? I was,
Okay.
No. That's
Okay, we'll get to Bob later.
I'm like, yeah, bro. And that's a whole nother subject, you know?
We'll get to that. Miguel.
Yeah, dude. That's I almost feel insulted, bro.
All right, wait, hold on.
No, I don't, and I didn't mean it that way.
I'm just kidding, man. I just me and Bob never got along either.
Well, here, let me get this back on track. You also trained with Crazy Bob Cook. Am I correct?
No.
So you got there after Bob Cook left with Frank?
Yes.
Really? Now, did you get there right after, or was there a lot of space and time?
I think there was a small. I'm pretty sure there was a small lap of space, because this was all in Northern California. Then Ken ended up moving everything to Chula Vista, and they were running that for, I believe, maybe a year, maybe two before I got there. And the people running that dojo when I got there were Vernon and Robbie Kilpatrick. Okay. Those were the senior instructors, the two. There was a couple students that were, because everything was shirt oriented. You had shirt colors for ranks at the Lions Den. Blue was the top, you know, and you had like the red was before, and anyway. But
now Robbie's related to Ken. That's his blood brother. Am I correct?
That's his real brother. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
If you watch House of the Dragon, I make this as a joke. That's Robbie is a real fucking target. You know, Frank is not his blood related brother. Robbie is. Those you can look at them and tell they're related.
All right. So you were at the Lions Den in 1999, though. Am I correct?
I got there at 2000, right after 2000. 99 is when my time was up in the military.
Okay. So Ken and Mark Hall had an issue back in the day, and it culminated in him getting his ass kicked, or I should say a fight at a casino. What was the issue over? And I believe you had an involvement in this at some point.
Mark Hall?
Yes, Mark Hall.
Yeah, they had an issue over Mark Hall disrespected Ken's wife, I believe. I don't remember the exact things that were said. It was the same kind of thing that I think later on happened with Fry. You know, it was just a lot of shit talk. But with Mark Hall, he made a comment that didn't fly. It got back to Ken. So, and this is now this altercation between Mark and Ken at the beginning happened right before I got there, because this was one of my introductions to the Lions Den was at my first or second King of the Cage, not as a fighter, not me going there to fight, me going there with the entourage, with Ken, for whatever the reason or whoever it was that was fighting. Mark Hall was there, and Ken was like, you know, all right, you and Vernon are gonna come with me. I'm gonna fuck this dude up in the bathroom, and you guys watch the door. So we did. We went. We watched the door, and you know, it was like cartoon, man. You could hear the and we were holding the door. It's like, hey, the bathroom, it's out of order. People be like, okay. So, you got two dudes that are there that are fighters. Everybody knows. We're like, that. This is not working right now, man. You want to try a different bathroom. Okay. So, yeah, Ken beats the fuck out of him, and then we leave. But there was a camera that was in there that I guess filmed it. So the casino ended up giving the shit to Mark, and then Mark sued him, but they settled out of court. And if I remember correctly, Ken was making fun of him because he said, the dumb fucker settled for fighting me in Pride as the settlement, because he'd make more money fighting him in Pride, even if Ken beats the fuck out of him, than he would in any settlement. But then the whole thing with Pride ended, and they didn't get to fucking, so he didn't even get shit from there. So he settled for nothing. But yeah, that was that.
That's kind of weird though, because I mean, and maybe what was going on with Ken? Because by then, this is 2000. This is out like right. He's been in the WWE, so he's the world's most dangerous man, kind of the persona, all that. He's now at maybe his high point, and then going into Pride, his MMA career was still, he was still a very big name. What kind? Like most guys like that are trying to avoid, fucking people up in bathrooms. What was going on there with him?
He fucking insulted Ken in a way that pissed Ken's ego, or he probably said something about his marriage, or I'm not sure the exact thing that was said, but it was enough for him to do something like that. So yeah, it was, the Lions Den was not run like fight schools that it was like a gladiator school, man. It was, I loved it. I'm not, again, talking in any way negative. For me, it was great. I did things and I got away with shit during that I probably couldn't, or no one would be able to do that today. With more cameras and more laws and more bullshit, people wouldn't, you get sued for half the shit that we got away with.
Well, you said you started with the initiation. Ken beat you up.
Yeah.
What is your initial relationship with Ken like? And then how do you kind of know he's
right
finally
after my
accepted?
initiation? My first, right after I leave with my friend Matt, takes me to the hospital. Then I have to deal with my dad, because see, at the time I was staying with my dad, and my dad had no clue what fighting was like. He's just a dude that retired. So I come back from the airport all fucked up, and I'm still not making money. So he looks at me from coming back, and he's like, "This is what you want to do in your fucking life? This is what you want to do? Look at you." I'm like, "That's okay, man, because soon I'm gonna be doing this to all of them." And he was like, "This is stupid. You're a fucking idiot." My dad was never supportive of this, which, understandably to him, he was like, go take a gun and go fucking shoot them. I'm like, "No, man, this is you're whacked." So yeah, after that, literally I had to start training again the week after, and I couldn't even breathe. So I had to go back to training, and then from training, I had to teach this was the pecking order. When you make the Lions Den team, you're like, your job is to do the kids' classes. No motherfucker wants to do the kids' classes. Kids are like fucking little demons, and the parents are bringing them to you because they can't fucking handle them. So half of them were coming in, and this is no exaggeration. Half the parents would come in and be like, "Are you the teacher?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're all, can you rough them up a little bit for me? Can you like, kind of put the fear of God in him? Because I can't at home. I've had it with it. I'd be like, so for me, it became like, yeah, because I guess in that way, yeah, you could say I'm a little thuggish. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll take care of that for you, Pops. And you can sit there and, I'll even tell him. I used to do that. I'd be all gangstered out. I'd grab the kid and I'd be choking him slowly. And I'm like, "Do you feel it? Do you feel it? You're about to go out." And then I go, "Look at your dad over there. Look at him. He paid me to do this." And the kids, the kids be I'm just fucking with you. But yeah, I would say shit that was completely out of hand. I cursed in every single kid's class. It was but I'm not gonna get fired. So it was just like, oh, that's just Tony. He's just a fucking Army guy. So it's all good, dude. I got to do the kids class, and as soon as the kids class was over, I had to clean the whole fucking bathrooms, the dojo, and then once that was over, I had to go fucking babysit his fucking kids. And this was almost every day because their mom didn't want to raise them, so she was always partying. So the young boys played a role in doing all this shit that, they didn't really want to fucking do. Ken wasn't home because he was always traveling and doing his pro wrestling shit and making money. And the wife at home was spending the money and trying to find someone that would pay attention to her. You can't really blame her because dude was never there. So yeah, Is this
the same woman? Is this the same woman that
I don't want to look? Here's the thing. I'll talk to you guys freely about everything, but I don't want to go into names because I don't want to hurt people's feelings. You can figure it out. This is his ex. So and then he had a girlfriend, which was another part of the story that's huge. But
and I'm with you, Tony. I totally. But one of Ken's ex-wives, and that's why I'm asking if it's the same one. She had like a little public role in MMA where she like got into the spat with Ken, but she managed Tito and Tiki and was looking to manage fighters actively in the business.
I don't think that was her, bro.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
Well, you said with Dorian, it took Dorian Yates. It took a little bit of time because Dorian doesn't trust everybody. And then once you got in, he kind of mentored you and showed you.
With me, it was right away. Billy told me Dorian doesn't trust anybody, but I'll tell him about you. So for me with Dorian, it was literally right away. Like when I met him, the first day that I met him, because he was staying in a hotel in Venice. First day that I met him with Billy, he was in his room. The dude was like getting ready to do a photo shoot, and he's fucking butt naked and shit. So the dude had no issues with me. It's like, hey, he called me Tones. He called me the Hedgehog because I kept passing out. I'd eat everything. I was young. When I met him, I was like 17, 16, but I was a fat little fucker, man, and I loved to eat. So I'd eat and pass out, and he started inviting me everywhere, but he'd be like, fuck, because he'd look and I'd be passed out, drooling and shit, and he'd be like, this motherfucker. So he nicknamed me the Hedgehog. But
there's a rite of passage there that, obviously you didn't go through with Dorian, but with Ken, when did you feel that he truly trusted you?
Yeah, but hold on. Ken never fully trusts anybody, dude, in that sense. Ken just, and this is not a rip on him, Ken just how do I say this? Trying to be tactful. It's almost like he doesn't give a shit about a lot of stuff. It's not important to him, and it's not trust. It's just like he's got no other options. You're pretty much it. So because with Ken, if let's just say, for instance, you're new, he doesn't fucking know you from Adam, but he's now having you babysit his fucking kids after, a week of meeting you and sleeping in his house. So in that sense, it's not like he trusts you. He knows that if you fuck up, he's going to kill you. So that carries more weight than trust, the fear.
Okay.
And with Ken at the beginning, I could see that it was, people feared him more than they respected him. Because a lot of people didn't respect him, obviously. Like, his wife and her family were managing the gym, but they were taking, like, they were managing it like it was their own private little bank, and they were spending all his money and, using it for their personal shit. And that's why at the end, he ended up bringing Bob back into the picture because he fired everybody. So now the fuck's going to run the gym. And that's when Bob and Kevin Wu came back. Kevin would take over the computer shit and advertisement, and Bob would run shit because, again, it's not that Ken trusted you. It's that Ken was making a shitload of money on the road. He didn't have time. He literally was gone like most of the week, and he'd be home for a couple of days. And on those couple of days, the dude was he was a true Spartan, dude. If I truly believe, like in the movie, what was that movie, Sin City? Remember Marv? How the dude in the bar says, Marv was born in the wrong century. That whole explanation is Ken. Ken would have been like in his heyday, fucking in a gladiator arena, just fucking smashing heads open, dude. That's what Ken did. Ken would come home, and instead of spending his time, doing shit at home with his kids, he'd come to the dojo and beat the fuck out of all of us. But he was like a fucking lion. We'd be doing warming up and classes and training. He'd show up, do he'd warm up, fuck out of his knees and neck, because I don't know if you guys know, but his neck's fused. This is another like insane fucking fact about the dude. He fucking did his entire career with a fused neck. That's why if you ever watch Ken, it's not that he's being cocky when he turns around like with his whole shoulders and shit. Like, no, his neck's fused. How insane is that? Like he could have gotten his neck broken from neck cranks and shit, but he was that good that never happened. So yeah, the dude would come home on the weekends from being on the road. He'd come to the dojo, and if there wasn't a class, if we weren't scheduled to train, he'd be like, call Vernon, he'd call me, call the guys that were, because at the time I was there for the first couple of years, we didn't have a fighting team. It was me, Vernon, Robbie, a couple of the better students, and then we'd have like the road show with visitors from the Shark Tank or who else, dude? Like Ken's pro fighter friends, or they'd be like the guest guy to beat the fuck out of him, because we were like we'd go we need to learn from him. So and we were learning a really toxic way of fighting, because I didn't know any better. I learned really fast, and I got really good because I didn't like getting the fuck beat out of me. So that's why the Lions Den guys got so good so fast. A lot of them, it wasn't that you came from a long line of training and you were very experienced. No, it's that you got the fucking shit beat out of you so badly at the beginning that you either figured a way out naturally to get the fuck out and beat them up, or you grabbed your shit and ran out because this ain't for you. Because there was no okay, man, now we're going to teach you how to block this because we're putting a lot of effort in you. No, instead of doing it that way, we put more hurting in him to see if, dude, he's either going to quit or he's dumb as fuck, because he's got to figure it out. So that's why a lot of the guys got so good so fast, because Ken would come in, and Ken doesn't teach you like, no, turn this and hold it. No, Ken was like, like the fucking superhero or the monster. He'd show up at the dojo, and every motherfucker in there got quiet, because you're in your mind, you're like, is he gonna call my name first? That's like, you don't want to be first, because and then in your mind you're like, no, but if you're first, it's gonna get done with you the fastest. No, you're the motherfucker was so freaky that everybody's like, just waiting and shit. And sure as fuck, he would beat the fuck out of you. Like, have you ever watched all these videos when they complain, their stuntman complained that Steven Seagal was being too rough with him on filming, and everybody hated his ass? I'm in my mind, I'm like, you motherfuckers don't even fucking know. You have no idea what that really is. Because they're a stuntman, get hit once, third take. We were the fucking punching bag, and then he's choking you. And if you don't, and in the Lions Den with Ken's training with you, and this you can ask any of the old school dudes, there is no tapping on chokes. So you either get out or you go to sleep, and we'll wake your ass up. Which, by the way, I carried that. All this toxic fucking behaviors, I carried on to my school and did to all my fucking students, which was terrible. But a lot of them became really, really productive members of society because they kept telling me that, I taught them that life and fear was nothing. And, I'm like, thanks, bro. But deep down inside now, I'm like, fuck, I choked these motherfuckers out and they feared for their life. And then I'm slapping up. I'm like, see, it was nothing, right? And they're all, yeah, nothing. I'm like, ah. But with Ken, it wasn't quite that friendly. That motherfucker would put you out. You wake up, like, as soon as he saw you moving, he'd fucking go do it again. The worst, I don't remember who it was that got choked out 3 times in a row. For me, it was 2 times. And this was during my initiation. But like I said, so you learn how to escape fast, dude, with and I thankfully was loaded on steroids. So I was not a weak person. So I was able to frame and use my muscle to survive. And that shit helped me get fast. But by the way, once I began training with Lions Den, I also understood which drugs were best for fighting, because what's good for bodybuilding is not good for fighting. But certain drugs that were good for cutting when you're training for bodybuilding and cardio were absolutely fantastic for fucking fighting. And I put everyone from Pete to other, I can say Pete because he's my bro and he knows I'm going to do this. The other fighters, let's just say pretty much all the guys in California were loaded. I think the Lions Den, and this is the only kudos I'll give Guy, is I think the differences between the Lions Den in California and Guy's Lions Den is were the guys that did not like drugs, prostitutes, and crime would like to go train at. But the guys that were into, Pulp Fiction type of life, crime, a lot of whores, and drugs, and illegal substance transportation from country to country, California was the place, man, because we had the fucking best time of our lives doing this shit.
Well, you kind of personally answered my next question. So you talk steroids. When does the team finally approach you or people from the team about your knowledge of them and how to take them?
That's why Ken wanted me, because he knew from the get-go, hey, Dorian told me I'd come with you, and, it'd be great if I could fucking share knowledge. And, I'm pretty sure, I told him right off the bat, I'm pretty sure you already got a good supplier. We assumed it was his friend who cornered for him because his friend was fucking massive. So we kind of knew from logic and deductive reasoning that was probably his supplier at the time. But I had a good, how do I say this? I knew that being that I was going to have a ton of fucking drugs with me anyway, he'd be, I was bringing the candy. I needed to make sure he was going to love me no matter what. I needed to be useful and I needed to be needed so that he wouldn't get rid of me, because I wanted to be a pro fighter. So I came, and as soon as I met Ken, I told him, whatever you need, I'll get it for you. And if you need me to tell you, what works for this or that, in a way, because Ken himself, they were using drugs that were not good for fighting, because they were not, the guy that he was getting them from was not fighting himself in that sense. So I'm not, but I can't say that because I know all his close buddies trained with him, but buddies and real fighters are not going to get treated the same though. So, but yeah, right off the bat, he knew my worth and value was going to be in drugs and knowledge more than anything. And then I happened to have a fucking amazing right hand, an overhand right, which was like the sweet bonus, because the first time he felt it, he was like, he hit the floor and he got up and he's like, that's beautiful. He was happy. Then he fucking he grabbed me and knocked me the fuck out with a knee to the face to let me know that was a lucky shot, and he's still the king of the fucking cage. So, and this was in the ring, but yeah, he I was the first time I dropped him, he like You could tell he was happy. He was kind of pissed because I dropped him, but he was happy because, this guy's got good hands. So he got up, he grabbed me, smiled, and he kneed me in the face. And I fell down, and I was like pretending that it was so hard I couldn't move, because if I didn't, he was going to fucking keep going. So, but.
Here, you'd mentioned like just different like balance in regards to substances, and he wasn't on the right one. You got there around 2000. So February 24th.
He wasn't. I think that the ones that he was using they weren't good cardio drugs. Because see, the problem with a lot of the steroids is that the main thing is to put water in the muscle. But some of them will pump your muscle so fast with water and sugar that you can't move anymore. It becomes engorged. It locks up. You're like, bah. That's why if you ever watch the biggest motherfuckers on the planet that I know are on steroids, if I ever see one anywhere, even now old, they're like, I'll fuck you up. I'd be like, I'll fuck you up. Because I know if I make that dude walk 10 paces, he's not going to be able to fight.
Well, that's my question. So August 27, 2000, Pride 19, Ken Shamrock fights Fujita. And while winning the...
I'll tell you straight up, I personally believe that the reason, because he had a heart attack, okay, and
he said PD my heart, and he quit.
Yeah, because for Ken to have anyone throw the towel for him, like when Pete threw the towel, he was like, dude, for that motherfucker to ask for the towel, I knew he was probably gonna die. He goes, so I knew something was really wrong. And for me, for my personal opinion, I think he was he had a heart attack, not steroid related at all. I think it was stress related, because he was breaking up with someone that he really loved, and he was having a lot of problems, financial with his life. So I think the reason he had that heart attack was more of stress related issues. You know, he's gonna probably hear this and he may correct me, but everything I'm telling you guys is how I remember it.
Let me jump in there with another theory. Were you with Ken against Fujita in the corner? Did you go to Japan?
No, I didn't get to go to Japan. I trained with him all the way up to the fight. Okay,
because there's an interesting theory. And what do you think of the idea that somebody may have slipped him something there?
That's silly. You don't need to slip him anything. At the time, he was fucking doing crystal and fucking coke, and we were doing so many drugs that, you know, and then on top of that, he had the stress of all the fucking personal issues. But by the time he was getting ready for the Fujita fight, this was like at the end of his
championship run. Yeah. Like
you know what I mean? Like this is towards the end of what used to be Ken and the aura of Ken. And by then, yeah, he was still, because we partied hard, man. We'd go over to his house that was above the stadium, and there would be every drug you could imagine on the table. So it was we loved it, man. We were living the gladiator life. You know, it was drugs, bitches. It was like, fuck. It was awesome. We fought, got laid, got high, and fought again. And then we'd go on the weekends to work as bouncers at these high end clubs with very wealthy people and intimidate the fuck out of them. You know, sometimes a few of the fighters would bang the fucking wives and bang rich ladies in the club. Dude, it was like they lived the gladiator life. It was the best. It was the best of times. At least it was for me. I couldn't tell you, like, I look back now and all the shit that we got away with and did, and I think, damn, we couldn't be able to do that now. For one, everybody would be filming this shit. In a way, it'd be cool because I'd love to see some of that stuff. But, you know, it's a double-edged sword because I probably wouldn't want to know the fallout of such things. But
so you'd mentioned Pete Williams. You guys were pretty close. How was
we still are. We had a fallout
White?
Midway, but then we became friends again. Because see, when I started working, there's a lot of stuff, dude. I don't know if we're gonna have enough time today, but I'll be as best as I can. We can always pick up more and talk again.
Yeah.
But there was a time where I was working at that downtown club, and there was a lot of the fighters that would come work with me. So we had at Rock Bottom Brewery, the piano bar next door that was called whatever it was called. Anyway, we would be managing the piano bar. And one time, man, I'll be quick on this story. We had this girl who was big, tall girl, started working there. She got cocky with me, so I ended up tricking her. And I told everyone at the bar, because she embarrassed me in front of everyone. So my ego was so bruised that I told everyone back in the back that I was going to end up banging her in 3 days' time to get back at her, and then I was going to dump her just to prove that, you know, what she said was wrong. And I ended up doing it. And the day it happened, she ran out of the room and Pete ended up running after her. He was like, "You're an asshole." Because, you know, I did that. So Pete and her ended up becoming an item. And then, there was one guy that made the team. His name was Bernard, a kickboxer from Europe, a pro kickboxer from Europe. And this is why I don't want to get too much into this and pull out of the Ken part, because I know that's what you guys want to hear. But the crazy shit was Bernard was Lebanese and he needed to stay in America, and I convinced that girl to marry him. So he marries her and pays her. But then the chick wants to try out for the Lions Den team and convinces Ken to let her. So guess who was watching me? Because I'm the guy they picked to try her out. Oh. And as I'm jumping her in, and we shaved her head too. And as I'm jumping her in, Guy happens to be visiting California, and he sees the guy he doesn't like beating the fuck out of a female. Like, I choked her out, slapped her, woke her. I mean, it was like watching one of those old fucking pimp movies from, like, you know, back in the 70s. I was all over her and made her cry, but you know what? She never quit. Like, I had her in tears, but she never quit, and she made the team. She made the team in a 10 times tougher fashion than young boy John. So that should tell you that chick is a true Lions Den fighter versus young boy John who faked his way in.
Well, here, that brings us to our next. You're talking about John.
A lot of shit, bro.
Wait. You're talking about John Koppenhaver, War Machine.
Yeah.
So you're claiming that it wasn't a real try-in. Why don't you describe?
I'm not claiming.
John?
I'm the guy that had to fucking cheat for him to make the team, because this is towards the end when Ken and the girl he loved break up. Now he's living in an apartment. His apartment's a fucking pigsty because he's got no one fucking cleaning after him. At that time, Ken had everyone doing everything for him. So he had absolutely no domestic skills or wants. And he was doing so many drugs and he was on benders that it's never going to get done. So it was always one of us that would go over there to do his laundry or do his fucking bed, or because that's how it was. Well, long story short, when young boy John came out to try out, his tryout, first of all, was not with everyone else, because the guys that made the first tryout, the other young boys, they tried out 2 weeks beforehand. He had some issues with his parole officer, so he couldn't make the tryouts. So then he comes to the tryouts. Go ahead.
With the guy from Europe. Him and
the guy from Europe just happens to be coming for the tryouts anyway. So they tell John, after he's cleared for coming down for the tryouts, to show up on this weekend where that guy from England was going to be there for the tryouts. So I get to the gym, and this fucking cunt is 45 minutes late to the fucking tryouts. Right. So at the tryouts start at 8 a.m. Young boy John gets there at fucking 9. And by the time he gets there, this English guy had already been doing an hour of, 500 push-ups. He did 500 sit-ups. He did 500 squats. He did fucking, dude, he did so much shit that by the time young boy John got there, the dude could barely fucking breathe and move. And Ken walks up to me because I thought this was the day I started to like lose respect for Ken, because the Lions Den became a joke that day to me. So Ken walks up to me and he goes, "Hey, I need you to do me a favor." I'm like, "What's up?" He goes, "I need you to make sure this fucking kid makes it." The look on my face was like, because I wanted him to beat the fuck out of this fucking piece of shit the same way he beat the fuck out of me. And I wasn't late. I was just told that he was just told by Guy that, you know, I didn't make it. I was no good. So I being, you know, in the mentality of like, hey, if I have to go through this fucking shit, this fucking bitch better go through it. Otherwise, he's not legit in my mind. And in Pete's mind also, because he couldn't fucking believe it either. But, hey, he's probably going to be Ken's bitch, so just do it so you don't have to do the fucking work. And that stayed in my head. Okay. So then I was willingly cheating for this fucking cunt. Like, he's supposed to do 500 sit-ups, 500 squats, 500 push-ups. He did 25 sit-ups. He did maybe 30 squats, because I was counting. Come on, man. 25. Come on, move it. 38. Come on. You're almost there. 51. Come on, man. I skipped fucking 10 goddamn every time I would do anything. So the guy wasn't legit. He didn't do shit. And as soon as he warmed up, because that's all he did, is warm up, while this other fucking guy from England was dead. That dude should have made the fucking team because he had heart, versus this other fucking punk who was fucking worthless, dude. He was so worthless. Look where he's at now. But anyway, my personal opinion is it's not neither here or there. I'm just telling you how I felt, because I felt betrayed that I went through all this shit. Now here's this fucking jackass getting a pass because he's gonna take that. But I did it because the alternative was worse. I don't want to be doing this shit for that dude anyway. So as soon as young boy John becomes a fighter, because, oh, by the way, as soon as he's done with his bullshit fucking tryouts, we have him fight the other dude. And whoever wins makes the team. What the fuck is that? The tryouts where I went through, we got the fuck beat out of us until we couldn't move to see if we were worthy. But now all these young boys that came after me, all they did was fight each other. And the winners became teammates. The losers left. So is that really the Lions Den? Nah, I don't think so. But times change, right? As the evolution of the pussification of society keeps going. Hey, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times creates John Koppenhaver. John Koppenhaver creates terrible times. And then that brings us back to the tough men.
Wait. So John Koppenhaver, how was he on Ken's radar before the tryout even starts?
Well, everybody wrote letters to Ken to Kevin and Ken at the Lions Den that wanted to try out. And John was the perfect fucking type of body for Bob, because he loved guys, bro. Bob was he had a sweet tooth for fucking good looking young kids. All right. But he didn't, in front of me, he never molested anyone. I believe that he was more like eye candy, like what we do at a strip club, where you're just like, fuck, you just love being around him because it's, you know, you're close to the titties. I think he was just happy to be close to the cocks and the fucking muscle. Because it's I'll tell you what, Bob was overprotective of his chosen fucking beautiful man, his Michelangelos. But he didn't give two fucks when we tried him out, because you should have seen this, dude. And I'm just saying this, and this is my personal opinion, all right? I remember when I fucking tried out Ben Thompson, he was a wrestler, a wealthy kid from Simi Valley whose parents paid big money for Ken to try him out, and because he made the team, but then he went back to become a fucking hotshot wrestler. His parents hooked him up by bringing him over to us. We turned him into a fucking man, a freak. He was a virgin. After he left, he'd gotten laid. He did every drug in the fucking book, and he was a stud fighter. So I'm sure that dude grew up like a Spartan in one fucking season with us, motherfucker. But anyway, with Bob, bro, that when I tried out Ben, I beat and Kevin was there. I beat the fuck out of Ben. Kevin was filming it. After I was finished beating the fuck, because Bob was there watching the whole thing with hate. Every time I was pounding him, and Bob was like, with his eyes, if he could kill me, dude, I'd have been torn to pieces, fucking in the worst way possible. But as soon as I got done beating the fuck out of Ben, Bob got to come in and nurse him. So, and oh, dude, you should have seen his face. It was like, you know, a fat person being led into the best buffet of their life. He was just like, oh, he got down, he cuddled his head. He used the towel and he was patting him, and he got to take him back, lay him down and patch him up, like take all his wounds and you know, take care for him. But you could see how he was just like, you know, he was thirsty, man. It was like the best fucking time of his life. So I could tell why he was there. It was no big secret. But that's, you know, sad but true.
I got a question in terms of Pete Williams. You mentioned that, you know, you had that moment where you felt like the Lions Den was, you know, cheapened itself, and, you know,
with John and with the other guys that got to fight themselves. But at least the guys that fought themselves, that fought other guys to make the team, a lot of them became, you know, good in their field. I don't think any of them became pro, now that I think about it. I think the only one that did anything, no, I can't think of any of those guys that, they never fought while I was there anyway for the Lions Den.
It doesn't sound like a real like environment where like you guys sit around. Hey, we'd like to talk things out, you know. We you know, but Pete may have probably felt betrayed when Frank left. He probably felt betrayed, you know, when Ken left them kind of hanging at the UFC and mentorless and stuff like that. Had you not talked about that, or, you know, did not some of that not show? Like, he had let people down before. You're not the first one.
Well,
you know, obviously it's personal.
I mean,
you,
look, he didn't let me down. He let himself down because that was his legacy. It didn't let me down. I was living the dream. I was pissed off that this fucking kid, who was also disrespectful, because when he walked in, I'm like, you're a fucking hour late, man. And he's like, so talk to Ken. And I wanted to beat the fuck out of him. But Ken was like, no, he's special. Why? Why is he special? But all the guys that had good physiques and looked a certain way, Bob loved. So, you know, he liked being around him. Again, I never saw him do anything inappropriate. I just think he just liked them, and he was thirsty, and that was the thing he loved to do. So,
well, how was John after he made the team? Did you guys ever kind of bond, or
no.
No.
I just told that fucking dude what his job was, and I didn't deal with him because I didn't want to get fucking yelled at over whatever he would tell them. So I just told him what to do. It was kind of like handing over the reins to this kid. And then he's the one that had to start driving over to Mexico to get drugs for him for training, or had to go pick up his recreational drugs from Ken's contacts. We didn't have to do that shit anymore. He did. So, but he also had to deal with shit that we didn't have to deal with anymore. Like, at that time, I was already living with my girlfriend, my trophy girlfriend at the time, who was a ring girl for King of the Cage.
We're talking about Werner.
Yeah. So I was happy. Look,
Werner.
I straight up, I think she was my kryptonite because I hadn't lost a fight till I met her. But I was happy as hell getting laid because she was like the girl I've always wanted to nail, you know, like the big German chick. So I was having a great time, and to me, it didn't matter. We ended up having a fight in New Jersey which was a rigged fight by the mob. So we ended up going with a couple of the guys from the gym. Ken and Joe Hurley fought that night. Ken fought Sam the Experience. I was supposed to fight this dude, but my fight ended up being given to Phil Baroni. And they said I didn't pass the physical. What?
Wait. So you were on the card. It was supposed to be you
against some guy from not Trans.
It was
where the fuck is the Dracula Castle?
It was World Mixed Martial Arts Association. Enter the Lions Den.
Yeah, that fight. I was supposed. You can see the poster. I was supposed to fight that guy, and then I went to do the physical, but the mob had rigged the whole fucking show. My fight, they first come out and tell me that I didn't pass the physical because my blood pressure was too high. Well, telling Tony that shit made my fucking blood pressure fucking high. I was like, what? So I lost it, dude. And Ken gets talked to by the doctor. And then Ken comes over. He tells my girlfriend to do whatever it takes to keep me happy and out of like making a scene. So that entire weekend, I was told I wasn't fighting, but I had more sex in that casino with my girlfriend than I probably did in our entire relationship. We even had sex while Ken was in the ring fighting Sam the Experience underneath the bleachers in the back. And then we got caught. So we ended up leaving, and then we went and we're having sex in the women's bathroom, and we got caught again. It was the best, bro. That was like really, really, really good memories.
You said the Mafia fixed the fight.
I was just going to point out, Mike.
Right. So you said the Mafia fixed the fight. Was it?
Yeah, they fixed it because they had made bets on who they wanted basically to win and who they didn't want fighting because they were what the fuck's the word where you don't know, unsure, like an
okay.
It wasn't a for sure thing. Like there was myself and Ray were looked at as a possibility that we may win. So they
were you supposed to fight Phil Baroni?
No, I was supposed to fight some guy from Transylvania or wherever that fucking place is, some foreign dude. And then they ended up giving my fight to Phil Baroni for some reason. And then Ken ended up fighting Sam. But these were all fights that were like pretty easy for the guys that won them. Like Ken basically gave a clinic. He literally did what he does when he does seminars. It was like he could have had a microphone and beat this fucking guy. It would be like he walks up and they're like, you know, are you ready? You ready? And they go, and Ken just walks up, shoots, takes him down, side mount, hammerlock, the guy tapped. It was almost like pro wrestling. It wasn't staged. It was legit. He legitimately did that, but he did it so fast that it was like, It was done because they knew there was no way this other dude would beat Ken.
You mentioned Terry, King of the Cage. How was it dealing with Terry Troublecock?
Awesome. I love Terry, but Terry loved me. I became someone that was good for business because either people loved me or hated me for obvious reasons. And my first fight is what did it with Terry. They treated me extraordinary because I was with the Lions Den. I didn't go backstage with all the other fucking people. I was in a special place by myself where there was food, air conditioning. It was beautiful. I was in there drawing like really hitting the blackboard because I like to draw. I was drawing a lion destroying a gazelle and shit like that the whole time. Joe Hurley was in there keeping me mellow. And then then Terry walks in and tells me, because I think it was either Ken or Vernon. It had to be Ken. I think Ken went and told Terry to piss me off because I was one of those guys that fought really good when I was pissed off, which is the opposite of what's supposed to happen. So here comes Terry, and he tells me that my opponent, Kurt Rojo, was calling me a bitch and saying that, you know, I'm not even a fighter because I have no experience, and I was like, oh, yeah? So I went in that fight already wanting to hurt him. And then it gets even better. Here comes my father to my first fight with the Lions Den. And he looks at me and he goes, you better not lose, man, because you're going to embarrass the whole fucking family. Dude, at that moment, it was because of my dad, I think, that I became a psycho. Because when he said that, I was like, I told Joe Hurley, I'm like, get that motherfucker out of here, dude. Because I was like, fuck. And he goes, and I hear him outside of the fucking door. He sees Ken, and he's like, Ken, is he really ready, man? He's not going to get his ass kicked, is he? And I was like, that fucking cock. So as soon as they let us go, I just wanted to hurt this dude really bad. And I did. But I felt like he cheated me because as soon as I hit him, he went down. And I was like, no. So I jumped on him just to get that aggression out. And I felt like it was gonna be like blue balls of aggression if I didn't get that out. So I jumped on him a few more times to get a few more hits. And Larry got me by the throat. Well, for me doing that, I became, everyone was like, that guy's a fucking psycho. So immediately Terry comes and he's like the happiest fucking man. He's like, man, that was amazing. He's like, can you do that again? I'm like, do what again? He goes, go nuts. I'm like, I guess. I go, and then they interview me and I'm saying, yeah, he called me a bitch. And then I finally meet the fucking guy, Coro. And I felt terrible because he's like, hey, I don't know what they told you, but I never called you anything. I don't even know who you are. So I just want you to know that I have nothing against you. And I was like, fuck, I'm a listen, man. They used you. They used you to make me angry at you. And that's just fucked up. But it's all good. And
wait a minute. Wait, you said he wanted you to do it again. Your second fight, King of the Cage 6.
Oh, the second fight, he had Larry come into my room and tell me I'd get an extra bonus if I knock him out and go nuts. Larry would have me. Terry's like, Larry will handle it. Don't worry about it. You go nuts. So, yeah. And I'm going to be honest. The first time I told you straight, I just needed to get that aggression out because I felt like I wasn't going to. In the second fight, which lasted way longer, and when I hit the dude and cracked his orbital bone and he fell, and if you notice, and I'm going to tell you so you can go back and watch it, if you notice the second fight, when the dude hits the ground and goes into the fetal, I put my knees on his ass, and I start punching him in the back of the shoulders. It was a controlled pro wrestling style beat. I did hit him, but I was hitting him in the shoulders. So, but the way it looked to you guys and everyone, it was like, he's going crazy, which was great because that's what was going to be my thing. If I knock you the fuck out, I'm going to make it look like I'm killing you. But it was.
They used it in all their promo reels, their King of the Cage documentary. Like they really got a lot of miles out of that.
That's good. It's not something anyone can do. When I was a fucking teenager, man, and I saw the first Bloodsport movie and I saw that Frank Duke supposedly had that world record knockout. When I did mine, I was like, that bitch ain't shit. But, then I later found out that the guy was full of shit. But it stayed in my mind because, he was supposed to have like a couple second knockout.
Okay, well, here. So King of the Cage, you obviously dated one of their ring card girls for a while, Oot Werner. The guy that got the ring card girls went by
I
Bad
brought
Ass.
her there. Ute wasn't part of the King of the Cage. I met her at the piano bar. She was a Bacardi girl that came in to do a Bacardi promo. And when I saw her with those pants, dressed up like she was, I was like, my inner little Spartan was like, dude, we need to get that. So immediately I went up to her and started just being me. I introduced myself and she told me she had a boyfriend. And I told her it wouldn't be a problem. I'll get rid of him right away. But I was joking, but I wasn't. And we became really good friends because I told her I was going to train her and get her in even better shape. That I knew would be irresistible to a girl that has an ego as big as hot girls do.
All right. So the guy that would get the regular ring card girls, obviously not this one. He used to go by Bad Ass Snoop. He was kind of a criminal, kind of known for sucker punching people.
I don't know him.
All right. He gave an interview from jail saying that you two fought before.
No, I don't even know who he is. Until right now, I've never even heard that dude's name.
Okay. He was kind of famous for knocking out Willie Joran, former world champion boxer, at a bar. But he gave an interview.
Out of curiosity, did he beat me up or did I beat him up?
Of course, he beat you up.
Yeah, no, I don't even know who he is, but that's great.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Did Terry Tremblecock ever pay you to go a little extra crazy? Like, what was the amount that you guys agreed on?
Bro, it was back in the day. It was like $500 as a bonus, but that was like back then. It was nothing. I did it for free, to be honest with you. I was still going to do it because it was fun, and I knew the crazier I got, the more I would become a household name in the circles of fighting, because no press is bad press. Yeah, I learned a lot of this shit from Dorian, man. For
sure. So when War Machine was doing all the houseboy chores for Ken, one of the rumors regionally was that Ken was trying to maybe get into the ecstasy trade. How true is that rumor?
That was actually before Youngboy John came. What happened was Ken had a group of people that were not fighter related, that were outside of the realm, that were all in the connected to pro rep and entertainment and other things from San Diego. A lot of those guys would basically sell or trade or supply us with the recreational drugs, whether it was ecstasy was the number one thing we used. Because from the get-go, you asked me at the beginning, and not to backtrack, I'm just going to set up the situation from the beginning. One of the very first things that you have to do as Ken's bitch boy is you got to be the designated driver on the weekends and take him out when he's home. Because, again, he didn't stay home with his wife and kids. We take him, like, for me, my first couple months, every time he'd get home, I would go pick him up in my car, and we'd drive to go get some drugs or get loaded from his girlfriend contact, who was managed a stripper club. She would hook us up with whatever it was that Ken needed, ecstasy or crystal or whatever. So then from there, we'd go to Tijuana, because that was the easiest and best place for any of us to get laid quickly. So he'd have a ton of, younger girls that would be flocking at him because he's fucking he's Ken. So we'd get there. A lot of them were already drunk, and he'd take a couple chicks, and we'd drive back to the U.S. At the time, obviously, he's married with his family at home, so I'd drive him to my dad's house because my dad at the time wasn't home. This was after I made the team. This is a little later in life. So I would drive him to my dad's house, and he'd fuck him in my dad's room, and then I'd take him home. So, but then we'd also, this happened in a lot of different ways, because I also would take him to titty bars, and, it was great for me, but I didn't get to do shit. I couldn't drink, couldn't do things, but I would be doing a lot of fucking cocaine and opiates. And, I was loaded on steroids. We all were. So
let me ask you just
wait. I want to finish answering his question. Right. So lo and behold, we end up meeting this one dude. His name was Mikey, and he was the hookup for ecstasy. But he was supposedly he was. Are you guys there?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Supposedly the dude was in making gay. He was a gay porn star. So long story short, Mikey was supposed to get Ken 20,000 hits of ecstasy that Ken paid for. So Mikey rips him off, just straight up rips him off, dude. And Ken, fuck it, because in Mikey's head, he thought this high profile wrestler is not going to do shit to me, because, what's he going to go tell the cops, that I fucking ripped him off with ecstasy? So anyway, long story short, Ken ends up calling me. And he's like, I need you to go do a job for me. I'm like, what's up? He's all, this is what happened. And I need you to go over there and sauce them out. Find out if it feels like they're lying and rip me off. And if it is, let me know. Because, you know, this is bullshit. And I'm like, okay. He goes, they're telling me a story that they got robbed by 2 gigantic Mexicans that came in from the bathroom, but they have a giant Rottweiler that's pretty aggressive. Supposedly the Rottweiler was terrified. And so long story short, I go over to fucking Mikey's house. He's there with his girlfriend, who was the real brains behind everything. And this dude, first of all, was terrified when I showed up. Not because of me, but because of the whole situation. You know, I'm like they're like Jules from Pulp Fiction, you know, trying to find out if he's got that briefcase for me. So I started asking questions, and yeah, both of them were fucking. They acted terrified, and then they showed me the bathroom, and the window was way too small for, mind you, anybody to get into, but 2 big Mexicans. And yeah, I stayed there for hours. And I told Ken that it was bullshit, but he didn't do anything about it, because what's he going to do to him? Right? This is different than someone in the circle of everyone knows him insulting him like Mark Hall versus this dude. So yeah, the dude ended up just straight up ripping him off, and that was his extent of his venture into dealing that shit, because obviously it was not worth it, or not in the realm of possibilities for the dude.
I wanted to ask you a question too. Just you're a Lions Den guy, so obviously Ken's the Godfather kind of thing there.
Am I a Lions Den guy?
For sure.
Really?
At this time that you're talking there, and what I mean is, the real fast question is, when you fight a King of the Cage, you're making $1,000. You were talking about a $500 bonus. Ken was in WWE at this point. I think he had like a $300,000 contract.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Making $1,500, that doesn't mean I'm making the fucking money, because a lot of it goes to Ken.
That's what I was going to ask you. Was he still?
Yeah, a lot of it goes to Ken, because he's the one that makes it possible for you to fucking be there in the first place.
Okay. So you were paying.
That's how it. Hey, everything that he did, I did with my guys, because I learned everything from him, from running the dojo to even how to lose it. I learned everything from him. You know, I was also a terrible businessman. So the same shit.
All right, okay. Miguel, I got to get this out of the way. There's 2 people that really helped us with this putting this together. Crowbar contacted Tony, linked this together, gave me all of his notes. The dude is just fantastic. Shout out to Crowbar, as well as Bud Hammer. Fred Hammer is a guy that listens to the podcast, bought us a bunch of T-shirts to give away. This is dedicated. This entire show is dedicated to his father, born in 1941, died last year in 2021. Thank you, Bud Hammer. Now, Tony, now on to you. You mentioned opiates. How serious was opiates with the Lions Den? Because that's something you really can't play with.
Opiates. Okay. The guy in the Lions Den that was abusing opiates the most was me. Because I got hooked up. Like, I loved opiates, dude. So, you know, but it started like all of us, including Ken, we were shooting up Nubane. You know what Nubane is?
Oh, fuck. Bas Rutten, we got a Bas Rutten clip about that. He said it felt like his mind melted, or he melted like a human.
That's what we were doing. We were doing Nubane. We were also doing coke, crystal. I was doing oxys and sometimes heroin. But I like to mix it with cocaine, so it'd be like a speedball. It was never ending for me, dude. I could go on to this and blow your guys' mind, because I did insane shit. Like, you know, one time I ended up getting pulled into secondary inspection at the border with the border patrol, but I was jonesing so bad, I ended up asking if I could go to the bathroom so I could shoot up, because I had all my stuff with me, and the bathrooms had no doors in the stalls. and I end up just shooting up, and this cop walks in, and I needed to think quick, so I start talking to him. Hey man, you guys love to watch us take shit. So as soon as I said that, he didn't even look at me. He was like, what a weirdo. But he turned, I finished shooting up, and in my mind I thought, holy shit, dude. I was like this close. I would have fucking gotten arrested. But I did things, bro, that like now I look back and laugh. You know, why am I talking? Besides the statute should be passed, because it's funny. We did just a lot of crazy shit that.
All right, but you guys did it as a group. A lot of partying as a group.
No, not a lot of partying. The stuff bringing it from the border, that was pretty much universal, because we go to the TJ pharmacies and get Sustanon or whatever Ken wanted. That was no big deal. All the heavy drugs that we used, they were already in the States. The only thing that we were trafficking from Mexico is steroids. Okay. But all the other drugs, like the ecstasy, crystal, cocaine, that was all from the circle of contacts already in the States.
What about overdoses?
I'm not going to give you names, but they were all people we knew from the circle of the dojo.
Okay, what about overdoses? Any overdoses within the Lions Den?
Yeah. Ken had one overdose that I almost had to be part of, because at the time I was already living with my girlfriend in the apartment, and we would party, man, so hard and mix drugs and do so much shit that sometimes you took it too far and the motherfucker's not waking up. Well, one night at like 1 a.m, the phone rings, and it's young boy John, right? And he's like, and when young boy John gets stressed out, he stutters. So I pick up the phone, and he's like, Tony, this is young boy John. I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? He's all, Ken OD. I don't know what to do. He won't wake up. I'm like, why are you calling me? He said if he OD'd, to call you or Vernon first, and not to call the cops. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Call an ambulance. He's all, no, man. He's still breathing. I'm like, so what's the problem? He goes, well, he threw up, and I turned him over, and he's kind of making noises. I'm like, dude, call Vernon, because I fucking go there, dude. So either call Vernon or call an ambulance if it's that bad. But that's it. And I hung up the phone, and it was 45 minutes later at like 2 a.m. that the phone rings again. I pick it up, and it's Vernon. And Vernon's like, dude, you gotta come over. And I'm like, why? He goes, Ken wants to see you, man. I'm all, what happened? He's okay now. He's okay, man. He just had a bad turn, but he's okay now. I'm like, well, awesome. You guys have a good night. Fuck that. I wasn't gonna go. But they were all partying. An hour later, an hour before, this fucking stuttering bastard's like, Ken's dying. And then an hour later, they're awake again and fucking party. So yeah, it happened another time in his house. I know I wasn't there, but they used to party hard, man, and especially after the WWE. So he used to have the other pro wrestlers come over, and they fucking do drugs for days.
Do you remember
the lifestyle?
Do you remember the mongrel Rick Slaton?
Yeah.
He was
a good dude.
He was in Lions Den as well, right?
He was affiliated with us because he was a biker. He was a connected dude. And he fought. He didn't fight for us. He didn't get in the team or anything. He was just real close to us. He was associated with us.
So for those at home, Rick Slaton was the person in Ultimate Athlete where the big giant riot took place with the mongrels.
I was there.
We've dressed it several times. Would you mind telling us what took place that night?
There was a fight outside, and someone had a gun. They ended up shooting And then all of a sudden, the riot broke out. I had a booth and I was selling T-shirts. So my main concern was my inventory. So I was literally with my girlfriend and 2 Mongols. So I can't talk shit. I thought that was pretty cool. While the commotion was going all around, we were tending to my inventory, which it was a funny story to me. I guess a couple people got arrested. I don't really remember exactly what the outcome was, but I was there that night. The event didn't finish.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. What about Jerry Bohlander?
What about Jerry? Jerry wasn't there when I was there. He would just come down and train with us periodically. I will tell you this. Jerry is a great dude. My funniest memory of Jerry is when him and Pete came back from the Abu Dhabi. Jerry had the worst case of dysentery, and he spent like 2 days in my friend and mine's apartment, just shitting his brains out and moaning, and I felt awful for the dude because it sounded terrible. And yeah, I don't really want to get into the things that we did with Jerry before. No. Jerry was a cop because he's a cop now, but Jerry's a good dude, and we had a lot of fun, man. I have good memories with Jerry, but they were not gym related. These were all memories of us having fungus fun outside of the realm of training.
What about Steve Bruno?
Steve Bruno was one of those young boys that made the team fighting another young boy that was there a couple weeks before the War Machine tryouts. Steve Bruno was Bob's second favorite. The first was, I said, Ben Thompson, then Steve Bruno. These were all the Bob's favorites. Bob would do things with those guys that he didn't do with the other guys that were pretty obvious. Like he would bring back gifts for them, sweatshirts, or when Bob would go with Ken to the UFC, they'd get free merchandise. Bob would pick out, oh, Ben's going to love this one, and oh, this one's going to fit Bruno. And they would get shit, but no one else would, and it's like pretty obvious shit. Through Steve Bruno, me and him had a falling out because he was under me. He was a young boy. So all these guys were under me because I've been there a while. And I remember, I don't remember exactly what our altercation was about, but I ended up punching him in the stomach, and it dropped him. He was still very unexperienced, and after that, he had it in for me. I would pick on him, but he ended up I hazed him with something. I can't recall exactly how it went, but I ended up hazing him, and so he goes and he tells Bob that I did this and this to him. And then Bob comes and yells at me in front of everyone at the dojo, like defending Bruno. So I was like, oh, I can play this too, because I knew Bob was out of order. So I immediately told Ken, hey, man, this is what happened. And Ken now embarrasses Bob in front of everyone at the dojo and tells Bob that the fighter shit that happens with his fighters has nothing to do with him. So then Bob says to him, oh, yeah? So it's either that Mexican or me. Oh, I was like, ooh, the Mexican. And Ken goes, bye. So that was the first time Bob left. Yeah, Bob left because he gave Ken an ultimatum between me or him. But it wasn't like, because Ken was like, dude, I was still valuable as a fighter and teacher in the school and bitch boy, because I think I have the chronology of young boy John wrong. I think he came way after, because the whole thing with the fighter house and these other young boys was like a longer period. I was with him for about 6 to 7 months. We ran a fighter house. Ken rented a place in Chula Vista with a lot of rooms, and it was Bob when the fighter house actually started. It was Bob and Bob's father, Chuck, who was near his deathbed, and Bob brought him down there while he managed for Ken. It was obvious Chuck was going to die. So he kept him there at the fighter house and fed him until he passed. And then the young boys that were coming in there, Bob would take care of them. And it was me and Vernon at the time that ran it. Then Vernon ended up getting a girlfriend and moved out with her. And then Pete showed up. So
Pete Williams. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Pete came back.
Obviously, Ken was with the WWE. He's got a lot of lifestyle, little habits and things like that. You mentioned the Sam Atkins fight. Sam Atkins, interestingly, lived in central Pennsylvania and used to bartend at the bar I used to drink at. So
UFC veteran Sam Atkins, right?
Not quite the same level as Ken, but I know Sam. Shout out to Sam. But at some point, Zuffa buys the UFC. By UFC 40, Tito and Ken was a fully built fight and was one of Zuffa's first big pushes. Did Ken take that seriously, or was he still partying on the side, burning the candle at both ends? How was that experience? Because that had to feel like. Go ahead.
He took it seriously. He was training crazy and doing a lot of drugs, all of it, because that's what we did. So even when we trained, we were doing drugs. I mean, shit. My fight with Tony Lopez, I was fucking high as fuck on crystal meth. So, I mean, there was a lot of shit you guys don't know. But yeah, I mean, we did a ton of drugs, man. We did stuff that, and I'm not saying that, this is great. Go do this, kids. It's just what we did. That's who we were at the time, and that's why I said I'm just speaking for me and the shit we did in California.
All right. So
the other guys in Texas we're not of the same caliber as we, as far as the naughtiness.
Okay, level. Let's talk about some of the cross country action that you were involved in. You were partners with Reto Mexico, the MMA organization on the other side, right outside Tijuana, I believe. And you were partners with Tony Noriega and Marco Perez. Am I off on any of that?
Okay, partners is making it sound like we had business dealings together. No, what we did is they were the perfect venue and this is after the Lions. Now you're getting into the bullpen era, because the Tijuana fights were a way for me to introduce my guys and give them the experience of fighting. And Mexico was way better than America because we could do shit there that you couldn't do in the States, like rip knees out of the joint, break arms, I mean, just shit that you couldn't do here.
But the cost of doing business in Mexico, there's several mixed martial arts promoters that have done business in Mexico and have not, they're probably in several different places at the same time. Was there any issues with the cartel?
No, none. Never.
Really?
Never. At least nothing with me. And during the time that I was bringing fighters down there and doing shit, that I was really, really, really heavily addicted to opiates and coke. I was on my worst decline because I was literally shooting up drugs 24/7. But this was that era in Tijuana, and the guys that were coming in to bring me drugs weren't from the cartel. They were just Tijuana dealers. But as far as the actual cartel having their hands in the fights and shit, no. They weren't that lucrative, man. I mean, think about it. They were even televised, maybe locally, the guys were getting paid less than $1,000. I think if I was the cartel, I'd be more interested in the liquor sales in those motherfucking places than I would in the event itself, because it was nothing. So no, but personally, no, nothing with the cartel. And I would have known because I was doing a ton of drugs. I would have been the perfect guy to be friends with for that kind of shit.
Okay.
But
what about Erik Del Fierro? He was in the Lions Den as well.
Yeah, he was. Erik is overaccomplished. He a firefighter in the military. He got out, became a firefighter there in San Diego, and he started coming in. He was one of those guys that I'm talking about that Ken would have me call to come train when he'd be in town, because he was one of those guys that would show up. He had really good work ethic. He was great with the gloves. He learned a lot of stuff with us while we were there. And yeah, I got nothing but say, I mean, look what he's done now. He's got his own guys, and he's done pretty well for himself.
Yeah, he's Alliance gym owner in San Diego. He's got several people in the UFC. He's done very well, for sure.
He was one guy I got to give a shout out to, because when I was at my drug use worst, he tried to get me jobs announcing at the events, you know, and I would like fail horribly because I was an addict. But yeah, I can't give him enough credit, because he was a good dude even then. Try to help me.
What about Roy Nelson?
Roy, you talking about that dude came after I left. That's one of the guys that Ken got involved with after he found Jesus.
Okay. What about Wade Shipp?
Wade, that's one of my bros. Wade's like a brother, man. Wade came. He was. Let me tell you this about Wade. Wade probably is a more qualified Lions Den fighter than a lot of the Lions Den fighters. And Wade he trained with us. He got his ass kicked with us constant. I mean, he was a dude that at the beginning was an alcoholic himself. He came to the Lions Den not to try out as a fighter, just to train. He loved it so much that he used that as a vehicle to quit drinking. And then the dude, in the years that I was there, went from just a regular dude to one of the fucking baddest kickboxers that we had. He was very dedicated. His wife, Erin, is another one that I absolutely think is fantastic. Wade and his family is great. They're like me. I don't have kids. They didn't want to have kids, so we have a lot in common. But Wade is a good dude, man. He's a freak. Who else do you want me to ask me about?
Joe Hurley.
Joe Hurley's awesome, dude. Joe Hurley is a warrior in the truest warrior sense of the word. I didn't, unfortunately, get a lot of time to train with him because he was mostly in Northern California. But yeah, towards the end, I wasn't there, so I can't comment on this. But the rumor was that Joe had come out to train with Ken for, I believe it was the PFL or some team fight.
IFL.
And yeah, and IFL. And a couple weeks before the event, he ended up trading Joe Hurley's spot to Chris Brennan. And Joe Hurley was like crushed, and he ended up leaving all upset. I just heard rumors of this.
Chris, do you know the last name for Chris?
Chris Brennan. He's a friend of mine. I actually grew up with Chris Brennan because me and him were teenagers when I was getting into the bodybuilding. We both started out with bodybuilding. And then he ended up going to LA to start training with the Gracies, and he was literally living and cleaning the dojo. Like, you know, Chris literally started with from the bottom up. Chris Brennan is another dude that I've known for a long time, and he's a good dude.
You know what? He's actually in town in Chicago right now. I'm trying to hook up with him. Brennan,
if you talk to him, tell him I said what's up, and ask him to tell you about his dojo in fucking Lake Forest in the time when he had Quentin Rampage there, because he could tell you some crazy shit. They fucking busted the pipes in that place. They flooded it. They had the cops come. They same drama that we did. It's just Chris Brennan-ish style. So it was the era, man.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal human being. Were you at the dojo when Mark Coleman came in and he and Ken fought? No. You guys, someone had asked me that, and I wasn't there at that time. Mark, my personal experience with Mark, because we became friends, and he actually became really good friends with my ex-girlfriend, because
she started working for Pride and traveled with them. So I got to know Mark a little bit, but my only experience with him was at a UFC where Kevin Randleman was fighting. I was with Jerry, and we were in the lobby, and someone comes up to him and he goes, "Hey, can you please help us, because Mark Coleman is at the restaurant bar, and he sexually harassed one of the waitresses, and they don't want to call the cops. So can you guys please get him out of there?" Man, if you've ever seen Mark Coleman drunk, he's like a fucking wild animal where you literally have to be on a constant, like, "Hey, bro, you good? Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic." Because if you say something that may fucking sound like it's threatening or wrong, that dude will drop you. And he was massive at the time. So that little thing, we couldn't get him out of there because he was trying to, like, I forget the words he used, but it was a little bit scary. And how they ended up getting that motherfucker out of there was they woke up Kevin Randleman, who was fighting the next day and who came down to the lobby very pissed off. And he literally took Mark out like a mom, like my mom did to me as a teenager. So he walked up and he grabbed him and he started yelling at him, "What kind of fucking example are you setting? I have to fight tomorrow." And Mark left with his fucking head down, and I was like, "Holy shit!" But that was my experience with Mark at
cool. Yeah, it's the only guy Mark would have listened to. He's the only guy Mark would have listened to.
Right. I wasn't gonna fucking try shit with that dude.
No.
Yeah, so. I was drinking one time with Mark in Brazil, and I made the mistake. He was in his mode, and plus he's coming close to 2 years sober now. So God bless Mark, but he's in his mode and stuff. And I made the mistake of going, you look in great shape. And in the lobby of the hotel, he takes his shirt off. He's like, "I'm always lean," and and he breaks muscles. It's this spectacle all the time.
But going back to your question, man, no, I didn't get to see them wrestle or train together.
Okay. What about Cedric Marks? You used to manage him, am I correct?
Fuck. Cedric, yeah. You know what happened at the end with Cedric.
Go ahead.
He came so that we could get him some fights in TJ. And yeah, Cedric was a funny dude, man. He was a comedian. I mean, literally, I can't even picture him fucking killing anybody just because he was so funny. But what can I say? With me, he was a great dude.
So Cedric, former military guy, ended up killing his ex and the person she was dating. The woman that Cedric was dating drove him there, entered the house with him, ended up testifying against him.
Yeah.
And while he was in prison, they said, he had a dispute with his ex-wife over his child, over custody, and no one's talked to her in about 10 years. So they actually think there's 2 or 3 other bodies in regards to Cedric, and that he was a serial killer.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
did you ever suspect it?
No, I nothing. Like I said,
your radar was pretty high. Like you could pick up on that shit.
Of what?
You could pick up on people that are kind of prone to criminal activity. Like your radar is pretty high. Like it goes off.
Yeah, but Cedric is a comedian. Have you ever been around Cedric? His profile name was Dick Gazinia. What Cedric did, even on Facebook, he was a fucking troll, man. All that dude just did shit that was comedy. As far as me picking up that he had psychotic tendencies, no. I would have told you, I would have thought that of Young Boy John way before of Cedric. Cedric, I still can't believe it. So, Young Boy John, dude, The first fucking day I met that dude, he tells me one day his dream of killing his mother to get revenge on her killing his dad will be the greatest day of his fucking life. And I'm thinking, who the fuck says that, first of all? And what? He blames his mother for his father's death.
How did his father die? You're talking about War Machine. So how does War Machine's father die? I don't know this.
I don't know. I believe
I thought he was a police officer.
Yeah, he was a cop. I believe it was suicide, man.
Okay.
But he blamed her. He said she killed him. So he morbidly hates her. And anytime the subject of mothers came around, he would wish his to die by his hands so he could watch her fucking soul leave her body. And he would be like telling you into detail shit that he'd want to do to her. And I thought, that is the kind of shit only a fucking psycho tells people he's never met before, or someone that's just really stupid and needs a lot of attention, because it's just, or both. Obviously, you can see now what happened with him. He fucking finds, this is how smart he is. He ends up finding love with a porn star, and then gets pissed off when he comes home and she's practicing a scene. I mean, she's a fucking porn star, you stupid fuck. What did you expect her to do? She's not going to be running lines. She's going to be practicing the scene. So he comes home and he loses it and he beats the fuck out of both of them. So he's a fucking idiot, bro.
Did you know he was going to go back to jail? Because I think Bob
Yes,
said
I said that from the fucking first week that I met him there. I said that dude belongs in jail. He's on a hiatus from the cages, but now he's back home where he belongs. You know what I mean? And that's just my personal opinion. A lot of my teammates, like Wade became great friends with him. Wade asked me, like, I think it was a couple years ago, we were online and they had a post about War Machine, and I reposted it, and I was putting on, the Horror Machine right now is, in cell block so-and-so, doing his best to try and make a sound when he farts. And Wade's like, why do you hate him so much? Amongst many things, is that dude stole my fucking penis pump. Who the fuck steals another guy's penis pump, I asked. So, and I asked him, I'm like,
make you
why
mortal
you take
enemy?
my fucking penis pump, you fucker? And he's like, oh, dude, I was gonna wash it. Who does that? He's a fucking thief too, and a bad liar, And yeah, so Wade was like, oh shit, he took your penis pump. In his mind, he's probably thinking, oh fuck, why do you have a penis pump, bro? I'm like, well, why does anybody have a penis pump? But that's not the point. The point is, it was stolen by the War Machine.
What is
a friend of mine used to work at a penal enlargement for a surgeon, and he had gifted me this fucking really badass glass pump. So yeah, but back to the point. How does one go to someone's room in the fighter house and borrow a said penis pump when it's not yours? That's
But when you opened up the bullpen, you had a 15-year-old that started with you named Zach Taylor.
Yeah.
So Zach goes 9-1, and he's on the precipice of the UFC, and he stops fighting. Could you tell us about Zach?
Zach, I think in a lot of ways I was a big part of Zach's mojo. I got a hold of Zach at 15, and I could tell not only that he was talented, but he had the one exceptional thing that a lot of fighters don't have, is he believed everything I told him, so much so that he became that person in his own mind. And why I'm telling you this is I taught him leg locks, heel hooks, and certain leg locks that he was so good at that on his first fight, and I used to have it on tape. If you ever get a chance to find it from the Mexico, where he rips that dude's knee out of the joint with a heel hook, that was his first fight. I told him to do that, and this is the reason why. When that fight was coming, when that fight was going to happen, it was going to be exactly 6 months from when he started training with me, and he'd never trained in fighting before. Getting close to that fight, he tells me that the instructor from the MMA school in his hometown is going to be fighting there, and I arranged for him to fight him. I told him he could beat him easy. If he listened to me and he did exactly what I tell him, he not only would beat the guy immediately, but he'd probably end his career at the same time. And he did. And he believed in me. And that's what you need in a fighter. A lot of the fighting is not actually talent when you're in the ring. It's the belief in your fucking head that this guy ain't fucking shit. I'm just as good or better. And then you have that willpower to fucking make it happen. Well, I took this kid and I got him to that fucking show, and I told him, I go, that dude right there, he doesn't know shit about defending a fucking heel hook. He's not going to be able to do nothing. And after you take his knee, you're going to take his soul like the Highlander. And you're going to end up getting all his knowledge and power. And you're going to fucking own that shit. You might as well just go to his gym and take his students after that. I was just fucking getting in his head. So as the fight started, I told him, I want you to shoot in. As soon as you go down, I want you to go take him on double knees, pinch his fucking thigh, go fall back, and heel hook. But don't let him tap. Take your elbows, and I want you to do a rotation until your shoulder hits the ground on the other side. And when you hear the pop, that's when it's over. And not only did he do it like clockwork, but everyone heard. And as soon as he popped the dude's knee out of the joint, the dude went, his whole body went limp, like someone fucking turned him off. And I was the happiest man because I created, in his mind, he knew then that he could do and beat anyone. So from then, that belief, it's kind of like the Conor thing. If Conor didn't believe in himself, he wouldn't be winning. Well, that's what happened after he lost to Khabib. Same shit. It's you want it there, but it's not gonna be there. Well, Zach, he had that. He had that mojo because I was always there feeding into it. I would tell him what he needed to do, and he would do it like a machine. But towards the end of the bullpen era, I'm the one that basically, I think, let everything down because my drug use took over everything, man. I mean, yeah, I lost all my students in the school. I mean, what can I say? I'm honest. I tell you guys, I don't have anything to hide because it's. I'm not ashamed of anything. I'm happy now, but yeah, I think it was a lot of that became my fault because towards the end, my drug use was unmanageable. I mean, my students, they were the last year they were just there supporting me, but I wasn't mentally there anymore because I was dead inside. Zach, once I left to rehab and the journey to getting my head back, I don't think he had anyone to fill that spot. If you don't have someone that's your Super Saiyan that's gonna fucking fire you up to where you're like a coach, man. You've seen coaches fucking tell people shit that you don't know what the fuck you told him, but he fucking killed everybody. That's what I could do with this kid. It's the power of belief. I could teach someone. You know about that Samoan kid from the King of the Cage, who no one wanted to train to fight. I'm trying to forget the name of it, man. I basically got him to beat a guy from Hawaii that had rankings.
Like Eric Pele?
Huh?
Eric Pele?
Not Eric Pele. No, this was a giant Samoan kid that someone asked me if I'd corner for him. And I took him. I said, yeah, sure. And I took this kid backstage, and I told him, this is what this guy's going to do. And I only practice one move for a guillotine. And he did it, and he beat the fucking guy. So then Terry was like the happiest dude, and I almost got the dude to come train with me, but he ended up going with, I think, Ted Williams, because that was Terry's diddly there.
Okay. What was your opinion of Ted Williams? I'm glad you brought him up.
I don't have much opinion on Ted, man. He never. I only fought once, which was the fight I ripped my what the fuck did I rip on there? It was my knee. I tore my ACL in. Was Ted's event, the Gladiator Challenge, and
it was against Brian Sleeman.
Yeah, and he was the nicest dude, man. That was the day I felt like how cold fucking Ken can be, because as soon as my knee got torn and I couldn't walk out of the fucking cage, Dan Freeman came to grab me, and Ken's all, no, don't help him, man. Let him walk on his own. That shit's embarrassing. And I thought, well, you fucking cocksucker, I can't even move. So yeah, I thought that was kind of fucked up because I couldn't even get out. You know? Hey, not everyone's a freak like Ken that can fucking walk with 2 torn ACLs and a fused neck and fight with that shit. That is beyond me, dude. Yeah, he fights with torn ACLs. You know?
Have you
ever heard of a fighter named Virgil Lozano?
No.
Virgil was a dude from Tijuana. They call him the Professor. He is a gifted submissions guy. That kid probably would have been one of Ken's good fighters if Ken wouldn't have fucked him up. Virgil ended up catching Ken on a knee bar and popped his knee in training, because Ken's his ego is huge. You want to fucking tap to this. And as soon as Virgil caught him in it, Ken like fucking hit him hard, like he got him. So he let him go. And Ken fucking got up. We all could tell that Virgil hurt him that day. Ken got up. The look on his face was like of total panic. Like he knew he did something to him. And he grabbed his shit and he just limped out of the gym and left. And this is the one thing I to this day hold a grudge against him for, is this. The very next day, he shows up. Virgil was one of the kids from the fighter house that made the team. The very next day during fighter training, he shows up, wrapped up to shit, and he says, I want Virgil in the cage. Dude, he fucking ripped Virgil's knee out, and Virgil was done for life after that. He was never the same. He didn't have insurance, so it's not like he could get, the proper surgery in Tijuana. He basically, out of his own ego and anger, fucked this kid's career because the kid fucked him up the day before. But the kid fucked him up doing what he tells him to do. This is some of the shit that
sometimes you gotta tap. It is what it is.
What?
I mean, it's just practice. You're gonna get tapped.
Ken's ego is huge when it comes to training. He's been this. That's his life, man. And he from when he got me and he beat the fuck out of me at the very beginning at that dojo to, when he did that to Virgil, that's 2 completely different situations. For me, I was making the team. He just came back the next day to get revenge and fucked him up. That's fucked up. It's like an unspoken. It's unspoken because I'm the only one that got upset at it. Not even Virgil. He doesn't even say shit. He's all, it's okay. It's part of training. But I didn't see it that way. That's one of those things that bothered me. And it was, this is during my time. After I left, I know that they went ahead and did more tryouts, and his kids became part of the team, and they grew up and did their shit. So I'm not sure how he runs it. I can only tell you how he ran it when I was there. And at the beginning, it was an amazing experience. And as the more that we did drugs and stupid shit, it started declining, man. Like everything else, you can only live and party at that level of fucking craziness for so long. Your body, everything has a limit. and even though I didn't touch on it, I want to tell you guys that as far as like the Lions Den talent went, personally, as far as the talent, the most talented guy in my era while I was there, I think was Vernon. If Vernon could have had the magic that I put in Zach's head, if Ken could have done that with Vernon would be John Jones. But the problem with Vernon is Vernon never took his he never took his potential to where he could. You want to talk about someone that had genetics up the ass? Vernon fought what's that Russian's name in the one he fought twice, man.
Was it Igor Vovchanchyn?
No. Hold on. He fought a Russian guy. But
Matsushenko?
Matsushenko. The first fight with Matsushenko, he had fucking done ecstasy and shit the day before. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, imagine if you could have had these guys training like Khabib trains with that kind of dedication. He could have even been greater. But the fact that we trained like literally maniacs, man, because you're like I said, you're training to not tap out. You got to learn how to escape, because if you don't, you're gonna get hurt, and it's gonna hurt until you learn how to get out. That has merits, because obviously you'll end up, if you pass, you're gonna be a fucking freak because you lasted that shit. But you're gonna also end up hurt like a motherfucker, because your body it doesn't heal as good, and you end up like me now. I can't punch anymore. My fucking hand, I've had 5 surgeries. It's all fucked up. I couldn't punch with this. That fucking hurt me more than anyone else. My knee, I have a fake knee because I've had 10 surgeries. I have my body's fucked up. I should be having fun with my life right now. I'm in my 50s, but my hand is in its 90s and shit. So
what about the Lions Den tryout tapes? Somebody stole them from Ken, and I know a couple
Nobody steals them from him. He probably lost them himself. Look, Ken, the last time that he split up with his last girlfriend, this is how he had us move his shit. He's all, hey, I need you guys to go and load what's in my bedroom and bring it to this new apartment, and everything else you guys can give away or do what you want with it. What? He was leaving his pancreas fucking trophies and shit. He didn't give a fuck. He was sell it, get rid of it, throw it away. I don't care. So it's not that people stole shit from him. A lot of stuff Ken just doesn't care, man. I mean, seriously, it's I don't know how now. I'm only talking about the time again that I was there, because a lot of people may hear this and be like, that's not the guy I know. The guy I know loves Jesus. It's yeah, now he loves Jesus, but Jesus wasn't around when I was there. It was it was just the devil.
Yeah, so, it's for those of you guys keeping score at home, there's 3 Lions Den tryout tapes on YouTube. All 3 of them have Ken Shamrock under, saying that he's having a lawyer contact them to sue them for putting it up on YouTube. It's fantastic.
I used to have tapes, but I lost mine. Wade has some. Wade still has some tapes from the tryouts. So, and they were pretty bad. Yeah. I'm glad I lost mine in a house fire, because a lot of those were probably evidence of criminal activity, man. It's holy shit. Yeah, beating the fuck out of people until they were unconscious, and then waking them up, beating them up again. And, a lot of them we had a lot of guys run away in the middle of the night too. That made, that did the tryouts. Cause we had one dude from Canada and paid Ken $15,000 to train him to fight Gan McGee. I forget his name. So he comes, he pays Ken. I was with Pete at the time. So the dude's all excited, fat Canadian dude. The very first day he gets there, it's grappling. and we fucking drowned him, dude. We took him down and we choked him. We beat the fuck out of him till he was like unmovable. So we leave, we take him back to the fighter house, and he knew the next day we were going to be doing kickboxing, and that's his thing. So he was like, oh, tomorrow I'll get even. Tomorrow came, and he got his ass kicked even worse. So as soon as the fucking day of training was done and we went back home, we're making dinner and getting everything done. And the dude went to his room and went to sleep. At 6 a.m, he wakes me up. He's like, his bag's ready and everything. And he says, can you please give me a ride to the airport? He's all, and you don't need to tell Ken. You can just tell him I said to keep all the money, and it's no problem. I'm like, okay. I called Ken. Ken's all, yeah, take him back. I dropped his ass off at the airport, never to be seen again. But he wasn't the only one. We had another guy, and that's who I thought that the name Ash was, but I was completely wrong. We had one guy who came to try out.
Wait, you talking about Ash
giant
Coleman?
Lions Den tattoo on his chest. Yeah. So Ken told the dude if he didn't make the tryouts, we were gonna grab him and we were gonna scrape his chest on the pavement until that fucking tattoo disappeared. And the dude disappeared.
Wait. Are you talking about Ash Bowman?
No, I thought the guy's name was Ash. So when you said that name, I thought, hey, that dude had a tattoo. That's why whoever it was of you that asked me, I needed to see a picture of him just to see if it was that dude. But it wasn't him. It was another guy named Ash. But he had a tattoo of the Lions Den. And he ran away when Ken told him if he didn't make it, we were going to fucking use the pavement till we got that shit off like sandpaper. And that kind of terrified me because we thought, what a jackass to have the tattoo already. He hasn't even fucking made the team. So we had a lot of people that came, but as many as they came, only a like the Navy SEALs, dude. Only a very small percentage stayed because the only guys that were mentally made for that were criminals and military dudes, literally, and people with unstable minds. Who else is gonna put up with that kind of shit?
Did you fight Ken in an alley behind a bar?
No, it wasn't a fight. It wasn't behind the alley. That was Vernon getting his ass handed to him. Look, I'll tell you about that particular incident because that was when I completely disassociated from being one of Ken's loyal soldiers, if you want to say that. What happened was, and this is one of those things I'll tell you guys, and then we'll figure out how we can go about posting it or not. Because during this time, like I was saying earlier, Ken's wife needed attention, and she was looking for attention everywhere she could. So she ended up finding attention with one of the students at the dojo that we trained. But we didn't know this. That was such a sneaky deal that who found out about it was Ken. Ken ends up coming home early, and he walks in the house and he hears his ex-wife laughing with someone on the phone, and he picks up the phone and he hears this guy who's a student. So Ken goes, who the fuck is there? And the guy's like, it's so-and-so. Ken goes, oh, so you've been fucking my wife? And the dude's like, it's not only me. He says, and Ken's like, what do you mean? He goes, a lot of people knew. And Ken goes, who knew? Did Tony and Vernon know? And the guy goes, yeah. So immediately, this wasn't true though. So immediately at that time, by the way, I was working at that bar and Vernon was also. We had both left work because this is on a middle of the night on a Saturday. I just come home and I'm getting all my work clothes off and my phone rings. And this is comical now because it's now, but back then it wasn't. I pick up the phone, and in Ken's voice with this fucking like, it sounded like, he's all, get to Buffalo Joe's. You have 15 minutes. I go, it's fucking 3. Are you joking? He goes, does it sound like I'm fucking joking? I was like, okay. I hung up the phone, and the phone rings again. I pick up the phone, and it's Vernon. He goes, hey, did Ken just call you? I go, yeah. What did he say to you? I go, he said, I have 15 minutes to make it to Buffalo Joe's. He goes, did he ask you to bring your wrestling shoes? I go, no. He goes, oh, fuck. So he goes, wait for me. I go, fuck that. I want to get there first, motherfucker. So I hung up the phone, and I fucking raced down to Buffalo Joe's, dude. Because I knew whatever it was, I'd rather be the first than the last. So what happens? I don't know what the fuck's going on. I get to Buffalo Joe's, and this is the fucking scene, dude. I walk up to the door, and the bouncers go, are you Tony or Vernon? I'm Tony. He's waiting for you inside of the bar. I'm like, holy shit. They're going to fucking, it felt like I was there for my execution, and they were facilitating the fucking whole thing. So I walk in, and Ken is at the bar, like leaning on the bar, like nursing a beer like a panther, like, fuck. I walk up, I'm all, hey, Ken. And he doesn't hear. I go, Ken? And he turns around, and he goes, why didn't you tell me? I go, tell you what? He goes, that so-and-so was fucking my wife. And he jumps on me, and he mounts me in the bar inside Buffalo Joe's. And he starts fucking beating the shit out of me like the tryouts. But by this time, I was well into the fucking training, so I knew how to move around, not get pounded that bad. So he's hitting the shit out of me, and I'm trying to like block as easy as possible so I wouldn't upset the guy. And he starts telling me that he walks in on his wife, and she's on the phone with this dude who says he's been fucking her, and we knew about it. I'm like, dude, how the fuck would we know about it? You know, this is bullshit. So he didn't believe me. So he's still beating me, and the bouncer walks up and goes, because the people at the bar started to leave. So then the fucking bouncer walks up. He goes, Ken, would you guys mind going out back at the alley so that the customers won't be upset? I'm like, you fucking idiot. You're supposed to be stopping this shit. So literally, dude, Ken goes, yeah, oh, that's fine. So he picks me up, and he's walking me to the back to continue beating the fuck out of me. And as we exit, I see Vernon, and I just to save my own ass, I'm over Vernon! So as soon as I said that, Ken's entire anger shifted from me to Vernon, and he ended up kneeing Vernon so hard that he ended up having problems for life, man. He kneed him on the side of the thigh, and it sounded like someone broke a 2x4. He ended up with a hematoma. He couldn't walk. He beat the shit out of Vernon worse than me, and over something that Vernon didn't know either. No, like literally, I'll tell you now. If I knew, it would have been at least more worth it. But yeah, literally, he's beating the fuck out of Vernon outside in the alley. There's people that are calling the cops. And I'm there, like, not reffing, just like, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh. And here comes the police. And the police are like, as soon as the cops are coming, I'm like, the cops are coming. So they stop, they get up, and here's Vernon and me, and we're bloody. Like, obviously, like someone just beat the fuck out of us, right? And there's Ken with blood in his hands. And the cops go, were you just beating these guys up? Did he punch you guys? And we're like, no. So he didn't just fucking. So he's got blood on his hands from what? I don't know. And the blood in your face is not from him. I go, no. I actually just fell. Oh, and he looks at Vernon. And he goes, did you fall too? Yeah, we both did. And they're like, well. And Ken goes,
what the fuck are you guys doing? Did you know my wife cheated? He like starts telling the cops that he's pissed because his wife cheated on him, and he yells at him, and the cops like back up and grab their weapon, and oh shit, and I'm all, listen, he's drunk. Let us get him out of here. Get him out of here. And the cops are like, leave now, or we're gonna fucking arrest all of you. So we ended up convincing Ken that it was cool. I swore to him we didn't know. We took a bad beating, man. Like, he beat the fuck out of us, and we didn't fight back. We just like his bitches, He like pimp slapped us, like, you fucking bitch, girl. Never short $5, fucking whore. We're like, God damn. So after that beating, I thought, what am I doing with this fucking asshole? He just beat the fuck out of me in public. He didn't even apologize. He's like, oh, okay, all right, maybe you're telling the truth. Oh, really?
No, wait, no, Tony. So first and foremost, in Ken's book, he talks about all of this in detail. Like, this is not something. I
haven't read the book, so
right. So this story in particular, I think, is not told this way, but it is in Ken's book.
How is he told? How does he tell it?
Wait. So the fighter that said that you guys knew,
he wasn't a fighter. First of all, he was a student. He didn't fight. He was a car salesman.
Well, here's the thing. That guy got you guys in this position.
Correct.
I have to assume you returned that favor.
No.
Oh my God.
Nope. We couldn't.
What do you mean?
He called the police. This became bigger than because the guy thought he was going to get killed. He just got caught banging the world's most dangerous fucking man. And on top of that, he had the world's most fucking dangerous man beat the fuck out of his most dangerous fighters over this. He's going to call everybody and say that he's about to get murdered. It's, we got fucked. I don't blame him, bro. I blame Ken. Because how stupid are you? Ask me. I've never fucking lied to you, you motherfucker. Why are you taking this scared chicken shit's word over us? Especially Vernon, who'd been there since like the beginning. I don't understand the loyalty that Vernon had for the guy, because even Pete and I told Pete, I go, he's still with him, dude. Pete goes, bro, if as long as Ken has a pulse, Vernon will be there. That was the fucking joke. It's like, holy shit. So, yeah, man.
How was your relationship with Vernon?
Vernon's great, dude. I had an up and down relationship with him, but Vernon, I was his underling. He was I was like his young boy in a way. He wasn't an asshole to me. He was a good mentor. But there was a couple times where he beat the fuck out of me, and one was over Ken, because I don't know what the fuck I did that Ken thought was disrespectful. So Ken tells Vernon, he goes, I want you to beat the fucking shit out of him until I get tired. So, fuck, I'm like, until he gets tired, he's not even in the ring, bro. So Vernon grabs me. This is no bullshit. Vernon comes up and he grabs me. He leans over and he goes, look, I want you to pretend I'm going to try and not hit you in places that would do permanent damage. But, make sure you're moving a lot, because I want to at least not make it look bad. I was like, what? So he beat the fuck out of me, bro. And he choked me, and he gave me a beating one day, and this is at the beginning. It was like a 45-minute beating until Ken's phone rang. Thank God. So he had to go. It's like, holy shit. Yeah, Vern was like, he would be beating on me, and he'd look at me for a second. He'd go, bro, I'm sorry. Bah, bah. I'm like, fuck. But it was, yeah. I mean, they're great memories, man. It's funny shit now, but I went through it. I went through the ringer. Vernon's a good dude. Vernon, I think, deserved a lot better than he got. I think, in my opinion, Vernon should have been Metzger, and Guy should have been more like Vernon in the pecking order. But
well, here Vernon White. Ken made Vernon fight Frank Shamrock when they were both members of the Lions Den in Pancras.
Yeah, but that's Pancras. That's money. It's a business. It had nothing to do with that. That's not rivalry. Look, listen, dude. We beat the fuck out of each other. Way worse in training. We hurt each other in training so bad that when we got to the fights, the guys we fought were easy because they wouldn't do shit that we were doing to each other. All our fights were easier than any training we ever did. You can ask this of any of the real legit Lions Den guys. They'll tell you that fight day was a relief because it was nothing compared to training days. So if you train and fight harder than you're going to do with guys way bigger than you, when you fight, it's going to be nothing. And that was a good tool because that did work and that was true, at least for us.
All right, Miguel, I'm gonna wrap up. Do you have anything before? I got 2 more questions for him.
No, go ahead.
All right. So what is your fondest memory of the Lions Den? Like the memory you enjoyed the most?
Man, I got a lot, man. I mean, I used to enjoy. I had my roommate Joe, who was a special forces guy, and he was also a big time Lions Den student. I met him through the Lions Den, and we used to go on the weekends to pick up Ken, and Ken would have my buddy Joe go up to his apartment and pick up the ecstasy where he had it hidden, and we would go to these raves, dude, and we would be partying from like 8 at night until like 6 in the morning, and you know, you would be doing like 4 or 5 rolls of ecstasy and your eyes would be fluttering, and you're doing the light shows and girls, and then from there we'd go fuck these girls in like all these places, and it was just like absolutely fantastic because we were young, because that's the kind of shit you read about in fucking books of Spartans and gladiators and shit. You know, you fought. We then did a lot of fucking drugs. Then we fucked a lot of chicks. And then we back to training again. That's all we did. My life consisted of waking up, beating the fuck out of other dudes, bleeding, sweating, catching the ringworm, and then going home, showering, and going to eat, taking a nap, waking up, training again, then going to work where you're beating the fuck out of normal Joes and practicing your moves. I love that, dude. On weekends at work, I would break shoulders, wrists, ankles. Then I would know the amount of strength and tensile tendency it would take to break something. If you practice on regular people, you get
like when you were bouncing.
Yes, every weekend I break something, like all the time. As long as it happened inside, it was cool because they can't sue you. You know, rock bottom lawyers really good, but if you did it outside, you're fucked up. Don't hurt people outside. Hurt them in the club. Well, it's their mistake. So yeah, my fondest memories is everything, man. I mean, the whole entire experience, you know, going to Michigan and fighting there, that dude where I shattered his orbital bone. And from there, I went home and met this girl at the bar who I ended up dating for a little bit. I mean, I'm just saying that the experience of the gladiator days, I lived into the max. The whole thing, the whole time was my greatest memory. I gave you guys a small account of the greatest time in my life, man. I mean, a lot of it, like the shit that I got beat out of me at the bar and all that, sure, it's fucked up, you know, but the stuff that led up to that beforehand, I mean, that was great. You know, it's shit happens that sometimes doesn't end the way you want to, but I hold no grudges against him. He gave me a chance, all these great things. If it wasn't for him, I probably would have done it with the Randy Couture's team and not done drugs and probably still be doing it.
So
no, I'm kidding.
What about your darkest memory?
Probably darkest. I'd say that honestly, Virgil getting fucked up and that British kid getting used like a fucking tampon by John for what? That kid's the one should have made the team, man. That didn't make any sense to me. Like, the worst part is when John steps in the ring with his kid from England, the kid from England who's never fought before says to me, "Hey, I don't have a mouthpiece." I go, "Wait a minute." I go, "Hey, Ken, he doesn't have a mouthpiece." Ken goes, "Here." And he grabs a piece of paper towel and he rolls it. Tell him to bite real hard. I go, "What?" So John ended up busting one of his front tooth or one of his side teeth during the beating up. But for John, that was like getting just a body bag to beat up on, because the guy, first of all, didn't know how to fight. And he was dead tired because he did 2 hours of fucking calisthenics. And this fucking kid comes in fresh and just puts this kid out. He hurt him bad. And that's it. He made the team. So if everything I'm telling you, how I'm telling you happened, John's a piece of shit. He's not a legitimate fucking fighter. He's an opportunist who got used because he was the best looking one that could do all this shit, like, help the guy when he ODs.
So the guy from Wales, I mean, my memory,
he was a firefighter.
He's from Europe. They wrote an article about this particular tryout, and they said he came in, he was heavy set, out of shape, not real athletic.
It doesn't matter.
But the article would go on, well, then he passed this test, and everyone's like, there's no way he's passing the next one. And then he passed that test.
Yeah.
And he was just, in the article kept writing, saying, by the end of it, you're just like, you're watching Rudy cross the goal line.
Exactly.
And everybody was cheering for him because he shouldn't have passed the first test. And he was set up to fail, and he pushed all the way through, including losing teeth. Yeah. And he was told, come back when you know a little bit about fighting, because you don't know how to fight. So you don't belong here.
Yeah, how fucked up is that? How fucked up is that?
His response was, well, that's why I'm here.
Right. He did the same shit to Jens Pulver, but not in that sense. He just after he did the tryouts, from what another team member said, that after he made he went through the whole tryouts and made it, he was told that he was too small, and there was no use for him in the Lions because he was way too small. So he left to go train with Miletic. I wasn't there, so you're going to have to dig and find out if this quote is true, this rumor. But yeah, I heard Jens Pulver also did the tryouts, passed, but then was told
in 99. Yeah, it was 1999.
I wasn't there. I'm just telling you what I heard. So to me, those are fucked up things that I don't agree with, because you shouldn't use people like that. That kid from England came halfway around the world to fulfill his dream, and Ken used it like a fucking tampon to pass this fucking piece of shit, fucking woman beating motherfucker for what? Just so he could be his bitch boy. It makes sense to me.
Well, you guys also had tryouts where like 3 or 4 people did it. One person dropped out, 3 made it, and then it was okay. You passed the tryout. Come back, and they passed the tryout and they would never return.
Right. A lot.
Why? Was it just to see if they could make it, or was it just there was something to turn them off?
I think I don't think they mentally were ready to do that for the rest of their fucking time, because it's a lot different. I put this compared to like people that play video game warfare, and then you put one of those motherfuckers in a real firefight and freak the fuck out. It's not like you imagined it, And a lot of these guys, after they were physically fit, but mentally they weren't. So you could have the greatest genetics in the planet, but if you don't have it upstairs, it's worthless. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like and like Ken is a genetic freak. The guy obviously was gifted. He was born to fight, because that's his thing.
Miguel, these stories from the Lions Den, like there's a couple gyms we're obsessed with. The Lions Den obviously being one of them. Holland, did you train in Holland as well?
Yeah, at Dolman's, Chris Dolman's gym.
Okay, Holland, that 1990s.
Are you talking about Holland, Amsterdam?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Chris Dolman's gym in Amsterdam.
That era, 1990s in Holland, was just. It's something that they need to make a Netflix special on. Like people getting murdered. Man,
I got stories. I went there to train, and Chris Dolman beat the. He's another dude. I got the shit, and I admire all these people that beat the fuck out of me in an absolutely fantastic way. Chris Dolman was another one, but Chris was not like Ken. Chris, you know Chris Dolman, who I'm talking about. Sure. Imagine Santa Claus, but of jiu-jitsu and bad as fuck. This dude basically pretzeled me. He would put me in positions where I couldn't even move or breathe, and he would say, I'm sorry, hang on, and he'd shift till I could breathe a little. He goes, "Is that better?" And then he'd slap me. Dude, the guy was fantastic. I had the greatest time, and I'm trying to think of Alistair Overeem's brother, because he's another dude that beat the fuck out of me there. Valentine. He was there at the time I started training.
Valentine.
Ed de Cruz.
Yeah, Valentine.
Yeah, all the early guys from Chikuruki gym.
Amazing.
Yeah, I have a lot of experiences, man.
Yeah. The Kikuruki gym, I believe, is the oldest gym in all of Europe. There's one boxing gym in Ohio that's older than it, like in the world, but that's
crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. Tony, you are filled with stories. I don't know if you've ever thought about writing a book or not in regards to this.
A lot of people say that, they tell me, but I don't know. That's why I did it today, man. Maybe we could put some of these groovy stories and mint them for life, so people can
what's gonna be crazy is in about 3 days you're gonna be calling me with like 10 more that you didn't tell.
Absolutely, because I'm about to trip balls and try and bring back some other shit that I'd forgotten about. Be like, oh, I can't believe I didn't tell him this, because Tony, I got a lot of that.
You throw me them texts, we'll come up with a little lineup, and we'll have you back on, dude. We started texting a couple days ago. I honestly feel like I've made a friend. Tony, I sincerely appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Yeah, bros. And I'm glad I was able to fill you guys with like the time and experiences, because I'm sure you've had people that be like, yeah. But I'm a talker, man. I like to talk.
For sure. One last thing before we let you go, we're going on 2.5 hours here. I'm gonna be in touch short, or Mike is gonna be in touch in short order, try to get PD on, because I actually saw a lot of PD's fights live, the UFC stuff. I was there when he knocked out Coleman. I was there, so we would love to talk to him, and you can help us make that happen. That'd be great too.
He wanted to do this together with me today, but I told his ass, I go, dude, if you do, you're not gonna be able to talk. Pete, even though Pete is my senior, he's literally like my little brother.
That's cool.
There was and the same goes for Wade. There was one time they all had a problem with me at the dojo, and Ken tells Wade, "Why don't you beat his ass?" And they all went like, "No, he's our bro." They're my bros, man. I do miss them, but I'm glad they're all doing good.
Yeah. So
if you saw Ken today, how would it go?
It wouldn't go, because we have nothing in common anymore. Like, look, I'm not a religious person, but I can understand why a lot of these guys that go from an extreme lifestyle of drugs and real bad shit to finding Jesus to fill that void, because they need something to fill that emptiness with something that makes them feel, I would not normal, but positive, or like they're now doing good in their life. I don't need that. I think religion is another drug just, for the masses in a different way. So I personally, I have nothing in common I wish him the best. I'm glad he found someone that keeps him sober, because he looks sober. He's got his grandkids now in his life. That's great. He deserves it. He had a really bad life, a real tough childhood. And now, this late in life, he needs to enjoy it. But yeah, there wouldn't be anything wrong or anything bad. I have nothing against the guy. Like I said, I'm telling you guys, good and bad, because it's the experience, but it's not in a way. It's just what happened, because it happened. And it's cool. You might as well learn about what really happened in those days that nobody really knows, because all you see is the shit on TV, and you imagine people a certain way, but little do you know, we're completely different than you had any idea. So
yeah, you carry a lot of respect. Like the guys, like I always do a pretty exhaustive research on people, and like Gerald Strebent is one of the people that I contacted, and he's like, dude, I got a ton of respect for that guy. He's like, he's a real deal. He's a real deal. He doesn't bullshit, and he's tough as fuck.
That's nice.
Yeah. Well, that's what people are saying behind your back.
That's good, bro.
But and to my face, they pretty much tell me I'm an asshole, so I'm doing better than I.
Yeah, they're telling you the truth both ways. Yeah. Anyway, Tony, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
I will be texting you guys. Thanks for everything, and
100%.
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to meet you. So, Mike, Lions Den member Tony Galindo in the books. Wow, what can I say? We knew Ken was one of those people that burned the candle at both ends, that just ran 1,000 miles an hour. And I think this, sort of confirmed and filled in a lot of pictures and stuff like that. Very interesting.
Do you know how hard it would be to compete with all the injuries, the fused neck, the addiction issues, family chaos? Like when we interviewed Scott Basak, he said, I mean, the one common factor is that Ken didn't like to be at home. He liked to be at a bar, and once he got done shaking hands and signing autographs, they'd go to another bar and repeat, that cycle over and over again. And, the thing what Galindo offers is he's right after Basak. Basak leaves, Galindo comes in. So we've got the first wave of Lions Den guys captured with Scott Basak, which was crazy, but nowhere near where this is at this point. So this is the second wave.
Yeah, Ken at some point crossed that line, I think, from all indications. I think the career shows it too, from, a guy who the UFC wanted in the first one. He had Japanese credentials. The Japanese, were working with him. He was being a conduit for other fighters. But somewhere I think that this partying type of thing took over. And, are you a fighter or are you a partier? And I think at some point that decision was made for him, and he unfortunately, because the end of his career, I don't think is what he wanted or what he would have pictured at the very beginning. And it's unfortunate, but I think that's baggage of this type of lifestyle.
All right. So this interview actually speaks volumes of Jason DeLucia. So Scott Basak and Tony Galindo talked really about the partying and how nuts it was, where with the Lions Den, where DeLucia really talked about the fighting aspect and the emotional ties and his bond with Frank Shamrock. Like, we've really got three different views of the Lions Den, all of which are of equal importance. Like that DeLucia interview, if you guys are listening to this and you haven't listened to that one yet, it's probably one of the best ones we've ever done.
Yeah, I think what you get in the Lions Den is you get in the early days with Pete and Jerry coming up after Ken. Ken made a business association with Guy Metzger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Guy had a gym and they became business partners and stuff. but their personalities didn't really click either all that great. Although I think Ken probably, once he got him in the gym once or twice, let him know what was up, kind of thing. It's interesting, Tony's perspective on the Oklahoma and Texas Lions Den guys being more. Those were the really professional guys. I don't mean to say Tony wasn't a professional. He didn't have potential as a professional fighter. But at the end of the day, this partying stuff derailed his career. And he, at that point,
admittedly.
There were guys. Joe Hurley's another guy that topped off, lower than Ken, lower. They didn't make UFC kind of thing and stuff like that. So once those guys, and he said he was, how did that work? He wasn't clear. He said, obviously, even if he's making $1,000 for the fight, Ken got a piece of his money. Did they pay Ken and Ken gave him some or none? Or did he pay and actually say 20% to Ken? I didn't get.
Or was that the house fee?
Yeah.
It ran like a Japanese style. It could have been 100% Ken. Ken supplied the food, in the house.
That's probably the way he probably got all the pay went to Ken, and then Ken distributed whatever he wanted to the fighters. And at some point, whatever, it's it's an interesting window into the struggle and how a good top-notch team that they could have made more money off of marketing Lions Den shirts and stuff. I've seen somebody where if they could have kept it going like an AKA over decades, with a couple of those guys, seminal young guys, like what's Vernon White doing right now? What is Vernon White doing besides owning a gym? Why doesn't he own a gym if he doesn't own a gym? Is he working at a gym or does he own a gym? I don't know, and I'd like to find
phenomenal.
out.
He'd be a phenomenal coach.
Yeah, Galindo pointed it out that in many ways, Vernon was the most serious one there. In terms of martial arts and stuff. I think that's what you get. I think you get certain guys. War Machine is another one. I think you get guys that are, they wouldn't be Lions Den fighters circa UFC 5, but it had gotten watered down. There were other reasons for it, like, Ken's, personal needs, taking care of him and stuff. Hey, what you have there is an immense ego. And that's Ken, for all the benefits of it, if he wasn't that intense, including the drug use, he might not be as great a fighter either, because he was one of those that burned the candle at both ends. You need one to feed the other. It's interesting the way those personalities were.
Well, and let's look where he came from. Like both him and Frank, they came from like literally abject poverty. Their parents, birth parents, may not have been the best people. And they really didn't want them. They were wards of the state. Like that's a hard pill to swallow. And then to have somebody that's broken like that and to build them into a champion, that's an incredibly difficult task. And keeping them on course is even harder. And that's what these last few interviews have showed us.
Yeah, kids that come from backgrounds without a lot of discipline, they have the tendency to just try to figure out a way to get their way and do their things and stuff, So all the while, Ken's getting support and the big push as the Lions Den owner and, with Bob's backing. And, on the side, he's doing his dope and, doing his lifestyle stuff. And, yeah, that snowball picked up a lot faster than his career snowball. And, his career snowball's not bad either, going downhill as you get bigger. But it looks like his addictions far surpassed his output on the MMA side or fighting side.
Sometimes like when you take in systems from other countries, even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, once the original form of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came to the United States and they saw the American wrestler and the catch wrestler, Jiu-Jitsu changed quick. Like it was a very fast transition to where it's at today. And I think Ken's, I'm not going to say addiction. I'm going to say like his want to follow the Japanese system with a culture that couldn't be more different than Japan. I think there was probably some adjustments he needed to make in his own system in order to make Lions Den successful. And I don't think he could get away from that. Like he was always like Josh Barnett, young boys, like even using the lingo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And it can't, you're never going to adapt the Japanese system completely because their culture
is different.
One that venerates older people, you know. And I think one of the things, I think this is an exact quote from Tony, is that people never respected Ken, like including students banging his wife, but they feared him. So he was a guy that wanted to scare people, but didn't do the work to earn the respect, which I think, you know, on the end of the day, Funakis and Suzuki's and, you know, Carl Gotch and those people, they also had people's respect, and the communication part, the talking to them, the coaching them, that part is very big. And Ken seems to really shut down on that. Like he doesn't do it.
Let's push that even further. Like what you said, like with respect, fear and respect. When we interviewed Bob Meyerowitz, the original owner of the UFC, he said, "Oh, Tank Abbott's marketable. Tank Abbott. And then we're like, okay, well, what about Ken Shamrock? He's like, he just didn't have it. To where you and I are watching Ken on TV at home going, dude, we're Shamrock fans. Like, hell yeah, bro. You know, go in there and represent, you know, America. And even Bob Meyerowitz kind of fell into that same example that you gave. I mean, he admitted it word for word almost that I had said in our interview with him.
Yeah, Ken's ego was probably big enough at that point that he missed a chance to, you know, embrace the owner of the UFC and become the poster boy. You know what I mean? Yeah. He didn't even recognize it because he was too busy saying, "Oh, I've got a gig in Japan," or whatever, and you know, playing it off, or, you know, maybe it was big, maybe it was a big deal, maybe it was, you know, a lot. My understanding, and I was involved in some of it too, is Japan was very useful in that, you know, if you had an offer, you could go over there. It just elevated your career. The real secret was that few people were paid big money there. You know, very few people were paid.
Including Erik Paulson. Yeah.
Like a lot of the guys, yeah. You know, like for example, Funaki's first MMA fight, he fought John Rankin. Rankin made $3,000 for that fight. You know, so it's like it was a facade, but it could be used. Meyerowitz had no connections in Japan that he could verify incomes and things like that. And Ken was probably higher paid, but DeLucia may not have been at that point. You know, they're playing off. They played off Japan like they had something big over there, or could just as he leave you be and go pursue their career over there. And that wasn't the case. You had to cobble together fights to make a career. You know, you couldn't go just concentrate in Japan until, you know, later on. So anyway, I appreciate Tony coming forward.
Smart guy. Yeah, definitely not a dummy. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, he played at a high level. We got good stories out of him. You know, I would have liked to gotten more in-ring stuff. Like, you know, Ken did go through the Tito, you know, and it's interesting. One of the things I wanted to ask him, and I missed it because, you know, better to let him talk, but the real root of Tito versus Ken is actually Tito versus Guy. And Galindo doesn't like Guy.
And
so
Frank.
I would have liked to have seen more of, or gotten more of his insight as Ken prepared for that, because it was like to protect his guys, or what was his feeling, or was it just something that he was just had blind? I don't know. That's what I missed, and hopefully we'll get him back at some point. So he didn't want to talk too much about fights, though.
No. There's plenty of. I mean, every weekend must have been nuts. I mean, based on it, either Ken beat the dog shit out of you.
What the hell's a weekend? Who cares? Tuesdays were probably nuts. Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays.
Yeah.
You know, Fridays more nuts. Saturdays more nuts. Sundays. You know, no, yeah. I mean, you know, like I said, I think that's the snowball that became bigger in his life than the fighting. And I'm sure that Ken carries some of that baggage. I'm sure he has some regrets that way. he's also very different. Like I don't know for a fact, but if he found Jesus or he's found some comfort in his older age, yeah, good for him. Definitely good for him. Hopefully,
good for him.
He's not carrying a lot of guilt or baggage or anything like that. But
anything anybody can do to make themselves better, I can't hold it against you. Let me wrap this one up, dude. All right. So in my research of Tony Galindo, I found out a very important fact. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to go find the most jaded mixed martial arts fans, go to MMA.tv. Fui needs to be the moderator over there because John Morgan, who can't do push-ups according to Kobe Covington, he's not pulling his weight over there. It needs to get ousted so Hong Kong Fui can be put in charge. See, I'm emoting right now, Miguel. That's pure Wes Sims. That's how he told me to say it. So the Underground Forum, guys, go visit there. Highly suggest that they always back up our podcast. Greatly appreciated. MMA Purist, Rambo, John Jay, of course, Crowbar, who lined this up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll see you next week.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.